defensive mind in the building.
Thanks very much, Carl. Thanks. It's probably too kind. But yeah, I think what you said is right. Even though it's just a consolation game, I don't think either team are going to be taking this too lightly. I think they're going to want to be leaving England with a win in some capacity. So I think there'll be a lot of competition on the field today.
Well, I know the Dutch team in particular were disappointed on Friday. They expected to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the Russians were hoping to win and certainly weren't coming over here just to play. But the result that result wasn't a surprise. The Dutch, however, losing to the Czechs, I know was, and I know they felt that way. So they for sure want to come out here and kind of get that taste out of their mouth of the loss on Friday.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Dutch national team have been doing had a lot of investment and a lot of time spent getting ready for this weekend with their camps and their preparation and their friendlies as well. So, absolutely, I think, especially when you looked at the first half and the way they went into half-time in the lead, I think the injury to their quarterback obviously really affected what they were able to do on the field. So yeah, coming in today, I think there's going to be a lot of scores to settle. And when we were watching the pre-game, they were very amped. There was a lot of noise. There was a lot of excitement from the Dutch. So I think that they're going to be coming to this game with a lot of enthusiasm and positivity.
Both teams now are on the field and are getting set for the national anthems, and we'll pause while they play those two anthems. All right. Well, the two sides are ready to go. You were mentioning the quarterback injury to the Dutch and how that really changed the way they had they played against the Czechs in that second half. They were up 13-0 at halftime, ended up losing 20-13. You and I were talking about this a little earlier about quarterback play, and in my opinion, this is the ultimate team sport. There's never any one-on-one. It's all about what your guys are doing around you. But also, I think there's no individual position in team sports more important than quarterback. As somebody whose job it is to teach quarterbacking, what do you do now? How do you pick up your quarterback who had a terrible second half? The starter is still out today. How do you get him ready for this?
I think the most important thing to do is it's being able to go to the tape. And I know that both teams, as soon as they got off the field on Friday, would have been straight back to the hotel. They would have been in their team meetings. They would have been looking at the tape. And it's about understanding, or what is it that my quarterback can do? What can my backup do, and then what package am I going to put in place for him? So what passes can he make? What can't he make? I'm not going to, if he hasn't got the strongest arm, well, the 4 verticals and that kind of vertical passing game isn't going to be something we can do. We're not going to have success. So as an offensive coordinator, I need to be able to build a game plan around his strengths and capabilities, but also being able to use the other guys around him as well. So they had a very strong running game. There were different things that they could do there as well. So that's something I would build around and give my quarterback confidence. If I want him to be passing early on in the game, I want bubble screens, I want quick hitches, I want slants, things that can get the ball out of his hand early, something that doesn't put too much pressure on him from the pass rush, something that's going to build his confidence, and then we can start to build and get into the game and see what happens. That would be key for me.
The captains are at the midfield for the coin toss. Looks like the Dutch team will receive the opening kickoff, and they will be heading from right to left on your monitor. The familiar orange of the Dutch national teams, Russians in white. And both teams looking to establish something early on. Again, both were losers on Friday, and the chance to get out of the trip in this weekend with at least some good feelings about a W. Paramount to both teams. So we'll see. The number 5 was the quarterback for the Dutch who got hurt. That was Richard Boothorn. The 2 guys who quarterbacked in that second half, Sven Jensen, and then number 87, Tom Vanduin. Vanduin was also their best wide receiver in the first half, so if he does have to quarterback here, they do lose that on the outside.
Absolutely, and Jensen was taking a lot of the reps in the pre-game. He looked like he had a bit more confidence there, so it'll be interesting to see.
That is Sean Richard, takes it at the 10-yard line, kind of picks his way along the sideline there, takes a big hit just in front of the 30. Here comes a late flag.
Yeah, there'll be a block in the back there by the number 46. He got himself in the wrong position and just got himself stuck there.
So return out to the 29, but will be backed up just a bit from the penalty.
Number 20.
Penalty on Miguel Castellan. And so good field position will be wiped away down inside the 20-yard line where they'll begin this possession. 1st and 10 at the 19.
So it looks like it's the wide receiver who's going to be going in first for the Dutch team at quarterback.
Well, he's 6'4". He's a big guy. He's got certainly a good quarterback's build, but he was the most effective wide receiver on the outside in that first half on Friday. Lefty, too, so that kind of flips the offense a little bit.
Hey, nothing wrong with the lefty. Nothing wrong with the lefty.
So a pair of running backs in the backfield with him. He sends Westling now in motion. The give is to Richard. Going to have a false start. Looked like the center might have forgotten the snap count as everybody else moved but him.
Yeah, not the best start to the game that you want. First play of the game and some communication issues there along the line.
So 2 penalties in back-to-back plays for the Dutch, push them back to the 14-yard line. 1st and 15 now. Again, the give is to Richard. Not much happening in the middle of the field.
So that was something that we noticed when we were watching the Great Britain team against Russia. The inside of that Russian defensive line was extremely strong, and the GB team only really had success when they went outside and when they pulled linemen around. When they were running inside zone, they didn't have much success, and it was the same there.
Gain of 2 on that 2nd down and 13. Change in running backs. Just Holslag now in. Quarterback is back to pass. Little underthrown as wide receiver couldn't get back to it. So not the possession they wanted here as they face a 3rd and long to start the game deep in their own end.
And that's the thing, when you don't have much success early on with the run game and you've run the ball twice, you're in 3rd and long. Now the defense can do a lot more different things. They can think about blitzes. They can think about being more creative with their coverage. Puts the offense in a little bit of a hole.
So 2 wide receivers to either side for the Dutch. He's got his man on the short sideline here. It's going to be short of the first down, although a late flag comes in. There might be a late hit that bails out the Dutch offense right there.
Yes, that the first tackler seemed to have him, and then as the other guys came in, he was obviously off the pitch there, so they might be doing that for unnecessary roughness out of bounds.
Referees discussing the penalty. He did come up a couple of yards short of the first down. A lot of discussion now, and we'll and it is going to be a hit out of bounds, 15 yards. That's an automatic first down, and after the Russians' defense gets an excellent start, holds on 3rd down, they're going to give it away on a penalty like that.
Absolutely, it's definitely frustrating for a defense, especially when that tackle was made 2 yards short the sticks. They're inside the 30. It's probably going to be a punt, and now they're on the verge of crossing midfield now, and they've got a bit more momentum.
Yeah, so just like that, the Dutch have a first down at their own 42-yard line. Looks like the referees are consulting a replay. We had that on Friday, the first ever officiating replay in British football history. And right now they are reviewing it. Maybe reviewing the spot that he got knocked out of bounds, because I don't believe that personal fouls are reviewable, but where he stepped out is probably the issue at hand.
Well, they're bringing the ball back. So they've reversed the decision there. They decided it wasn't a late hit.
I couldn't understand his entire explanation, but the gist of it is that it is 4th down now for the Dutch, and instead of a first down at the 42, they're going to have to punt. On to punt for the Dutch team is Jasper Van Doren. He actually plays for the London Blitz, so he's a regular here in the British football area. Nice high kick. Fair catch called for. And the Russians will take over at the 38-yard line, 1st and 10.
That was really well taken there by the number 80 as well. As he called for the fair catch, everyone was swarming around. There was a lot of different things going on for us. So for him to still keep his concentration and make sure he didn't fumble, that was really good.
Dmitry Shorokov will be the starting quarterback for the Russian team. He did not play on Friday. The 2 quarterbacks who did were number 10, Igor Chulanatsky. He's the one who started the game. Then Nikolai Shidov played the second half. Handoff inside, nothing to do there for number 22. That's Anton Potapov. He got back to the line of scrimmage and nothing more than that. 2nd and 10. The down marker having a hard time keeping track. He was struggling on the Dutch possession. He's still listed at first down right now, although it is 2nd down. Again, the give is to Potapov, but nothing doing. That's number 54, Kevin Bourne, meeting him in the backfield.
Very slow developing play there. The running back didn't have much momentum when he took the ball, so he had no real chance to get away from the pass rush that had got through, the defensive lineman that had got through the into the backfield there.
So 3rd and 14. And another long 3rd down. Both teams' offense stuck in neutral here to begin the game. Back to pass. It's Kevin Bourne applying some pressure on the outside. He's going to scramble. Taken down well short of the first down by Casper Bongartz.
So we talk again about being in a situation that kind of puts your offense in a bind. 2 runs there, and they're in 3rd and long. The defense came out. They played man across the board with those 2 safeties in a shell. Nothing really there for him, and he had to scramble instead.
So 4th and 10, the Russian punt team is on. The punter had an error on Friday where he put his knee down with the ball in his hand, and it was a big change of possession in that GB game. So no doubt he'll be thinking about that all day although a good snap makes it much easier, although a bad kick off the left side of his foot. It's going to bounce out of bounds at the 41-yard line. Late flag comes in behind the play now. Like there might have been some jawing between a couple of players.
Yeah, number 20 for Russia, number 4 from the Dutch. They were locked up, went to the ground, and there was a little bit of afters after the play there. So it'll be interesting to see which way the referees call this, with it being 4th down.
Yeah, both teams obviously frustrated with their results on Friday, and perhaps some of that frustration boiling over here on Sunday morning. And that is going to be a 15-yard penalty against the Russians. So excellent field position for the Dutch starting their 2nd possession. They're going to begin this at the Russian 44-yard line.
Now, this is the thing, within the first 3 minutes of the game, the Russians have had 2 personal foul calls. Obviously one was cancelled here, but there's 2 times now where they haven't kept their cool in the game, and there have been big yardage gains for the Dutch. So they're going to have to make sure they calm it down a little bit.
Yeah, we're just 3 minutes in, and they've already committed 2 potentially terrible penalties. The first one, again, like you said, was wiped away, but that one right there, big 15-yarder. Dutch now in excellent field position. 1st and 10. The give is to Richard up the middle. He's got some space this time. And right near the first down, he's going to be short by about a yard. 9-yard pickup on first down. You talked about when those running plays don't do much, it kind of closes your playbook and opens up the defensive playbook. But on a 9-yard second down and 1, now you've got everything you can do.
The OC's looking at his play guard thinking, I can call everything here. And even if it doesn't work, I can come back on 3rd down, and I've still got a good shot. Plus, with the field position they're in, this is probably 4-down territory because it's going to be quite a long field goal for the kicker. So they've probably got 4 downs now to convert.
It is a beautiful day here. Weather not a factor, and there's no wind at the moment, not like we had on Friday. So wind should not affect the kicking game. The give is to Wesseling. He gets taken down. We might have sure looked like he got taken down by his helmet, but they say he did not grab the face mask.
That was a great job by the right tackle of the Dutch team there. When you've got a jet sweep, that's probably the focal point of the play. If that defensive end can just get upfield and force him outside, then he's not going to make any yards, but the right tackle did a great job on the end. He was able to turn the corner and make the first down.
First down at the 30-yard line. The Dutch have their first down of the game. This is their 2nd possession. Miguel Castellan now in at running back. Now Sean Richard in motion. The give is to Castellan. And this time the Russian defense holds. That's number 99, Alexander Pavlov.
So you can see what the Dutch are thinking about. They're using that jet sweep, and then they want to try and use that as a bit of trickery and misdirection as well. So when the defense flow over, that running back can run up the middle. But as we said at the start of the game, the strength of the Russian defense is probably their front 4. So you're not going to get too much on them up in the middle of the field.
2nd and 10. Back to pass. He's got his man, gets a nice block on the outside by the wide receiver. He's got a first down, knocked out of bounds inside the 20-yard line. Mark that at the 15.
And that was a great job by Nice Semedo, the number 1 for the Dutch Lions. As soon as he saw that there was the ball had been caught, he made a great block on the DB. It allowed his guy to turn the corner. Really nice play there.
We'll call that the 17-yard line. We are in the rafters perch here, and we're a little bit of an obstructed view when they're at that end of the field.
Yeah, we're crouching here.
That pass over the head of the intended receiver, Dylan Van Gerhardt. Try that again, Dylan Van Gerhardt. He's only 5'7", so that pass would have been fine if he was 6'3", but 2nd and 10 now.
So the Russians have just substituted 3 defensive linemen in, so they're looking at some kind of pass rush situation here. With the field being a lot more enclosed down at the red zone, they want to try and get pressure on the quarterback, make sure he can't get any time to throw the ball.
One thing interesting, the Dutch did not huddle at all in that first half where they moved the ball against the Czechs. They didn't make it very many substitutions. Here we're seeing huddles, we're seeing substitutions. They've really changed the tempo that they're approaching today's game.
And that's the thing we were talking about in the pregame with the quarterback. The offensive coordinator and the head coach, they're going to want to slow it down a lot for him, allow him time to process what the play call is, what he needs to do. Because with no huddle, it's a lot quicker. You need a lot more time and a lot more practice in it. So this just gives him time to look at the call, settle down, call it to the guys, and make sure he can run it effectively.
Now facing a 3rd down and 3 after that run up the middle. Again, it's Castle and the running back behind his quarterback. Now he moves over to his left. The give is to Castellan. He's going to try to take it outside. Russians do a nice job keeping that play inside. We've also got a holding penalty, it looks like.
I think there may be a block in the back from the slot on that right-hand side. Calvin Day just got on the wrong side of the DB and put his hands on his back. I think that's what the flag's going to be.
Well, do you accept the penalty, or do you go ahead and set him up with a 4th down?
So they've waved it off. So it brings up 4th down anyway. It's an interesting one because they would either have like third and a long distance, or if they were 4th and short and they declined, you could probably go for it again.
Well, it looks like they're going to go for it here on 4th and 5. So first big decision here by the Dutch coaches to wave off a field goal attempt and go for it. Back to pass. He's got his man in the end zone. Underthrows him, however. Knocked down by the Russian defense. That's number 20, Dmitry Kulinic.
And from a game decision, that you don't look at that as being too bad. You're down in the red zone. You want to take a shot early on. And if it doesn't convert and there's no turnovers, you still have a situation here where the Russians are backed up on their 10-yard line. It's great in terms of field position for the defense. It means they can be a little bit more aggressive and creative with what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, you certainly like the way your defense looked in that first series against the Russian offense. So yeah, if your defense can hold, you're going to get the ball back in very good field position. Back to pass are the Russians. Number 9 makes a nice catch, slips a couple of tackles, leans forward across the 20-yard line to the 23, and that is going to be a 1st down.
Yeah, really nice gain. Just a quick out pattern by the receiver, caught it turned upfield and was able to break 1 tackle, and that just sprung him for the 1st down.
I do not have a number 9 on my roster, so I cannot tell you who that was. But a nice catch and a nice run afterwards. The Russians have their first down of the game. They give inside now. A little bit of space there for Anton Potapov.
We were talking about how the offenses are running. The Russians are a no-huddle offense. They're running off of wrist guards, so that call is coming into the quarterback and being communicated across the line.
Got a Dutch defensive lineman down on the play. It's number 96, Shaquille Peters. One of the many Amsterdam Crusaders on this Dutch team.
Yeah, it looks like just from the recent Dutch national leagues, Amsterdam seem to have a bit of a run on the national championship for the last 18 years.
Yeah, the Crusaders definitely dominate the league there.
It's quite similar to what's going on in England and currently with both the Blitz and the Warriors being the two dominant teams.
Well, you see that with all four of the teams that are here this weekend, very capital heavy. A lot of players from Prague on the Czech team, a lot of Moscow players here on the Russian team, and obviously a lot of London players
absolutely.
On the GB team. Back to that the play there in the end zone where the Russians knocked that down. That was Dmitry Kulinich who made that defensive play. He intercepted a pass to begin the game against against GB on Friday. He was famously in the chatter this week because on his Instagram account he said he was going to make thousands of interceptions this weekend. He did have one, could have had a second there.
So the numbers are slightly askew at the start of the game.
Well, he still has another 3.5 quarters to go. So good run up the middle.
And that's the thing from being in a team and especially coming up to big games. If there's something on Instagram that someone from the opposition team has said, then that's always going to rile you up. It's always going to stoke the fires of competition.
That was a first down carry for the Russians. So a good possession here as they've put together a couple of first downs. They have the ball now at the 34-yard line.
And now that they've had some success running the ball, that's going to open up some other parts of their offense.
They give again in the middle. That is a good run there by number 28. That's Vladimir Konchakovsky.
Really nice play there, a little bit of a delay with the running back. You had the pulling guard come around. That just opened up the lane, and he was able to follow that guard up the field for a nice game.
We saw very little offense from the Russians on Friday. They managed just a field goal against GB. But here we are, 3 first downs in a row. Met in the backfield. Again, Kevin Bourne. Another huge play by Kevin Bourne.
He came pretty much unblocked there.
Loss of 2, so 2nd and 12 coming up for the Russians. Running for his life. He's got a man, but tried to keep it himself. Looked like he might try to dump that off to number 28 there, but the quarterback kept it himself. That's Dmitry Shorokov.
That was a great job there by Lennon Harris, number 42, linebacker for the Dutch. Came straight through the middle there on the blitz. Was able to make the QB scramble to the outside, kind of took away the passing options, and then the Dutch defense was able to converge on the ball. Great job.
So 3rd and long, 3rd down and 8 for the Russians. Empty backfield. Dutch sideline making as much noise as they can. High pass, but a good catch by number 87. He is going to fight right at the marker. We'll see. They're going to mark him. Looks like he's going to be a yard short.
That was unfortunate there for the number 24, the corner for the Dutch, Chebo Tower. Had him wrapped up for about 3-4 yards before the sticks and just couldn't make that tackle. So now 4th and short's coming up and they're staying on the field.
Alexander Koklov, the wide receiver who made that play. 4th down and 1. And Russians keeping their offense on the field, they will go for it. A lot of shifting personnel. They give in the middle, and he is met by the Dutch defense, and he is going to be short of the first down.
It's interesting because we were watching the Russian kicker in pregame, and he had quite a leg, but I don't think he would have the leg for about a 55 to 60-yard field goal. So you look at where the Russians started in their own red zone. They've been able to move the ball out. They've been able to swap the field position around. So it's not too bad a decision there to go for it on 4th down.
That was number 92, Nick Myers. Nick is 6'7", 298 pounds. It's a big boy, filling a lot of space there in the middle of the field. Made the play there.
Yeah, it's gonna have a lot of trouble shifting him.
So both teams showing life in their second possessions, but neither team coming up with any points. 1:39 left here in the first quarter. It's 12-minute quarters in international football. Dutch beginning their third possession at their own 44-yard line. That's Sean Richards kind of picking his way, trying to find anything, nothing doing. The Russian defense, again, as you mentioned, very strong in the middle.
I think they were in a king formation there where the back's in the pistol. There's a second back to the side of the quarterback, and they try to run an outside zone there. There was just no space for them, for the fullback to lead the play, and so that just got holed up really quickly.
Loses about a half yard on that play. Second down. Back to pass this time. Through the hands of the wide receiver, not getting any help. It's Ananias Semedo.
That's the thing, we talked about momentum for the quarterback. Russia are playing a lot of cover 4. Their corners are playing very deep. That's an easy pass there with the hitch, and it's just unfortunate that the receiver lost concentration, couldn't really bring that in and snag it. And it was nearly an interception there by the Russians.
Semedo did have the Dutch touchdown in that first game on Friday. Early touchdown reception. Now third down and just a long 10, we'll call it. Swings it out. Nothing doing there. The defensive back does a nice job of getting off the block and coming up and making the play.
That's the thing with a quick screen. You need contact on the outside DB by the receiver just to be able to spring the slot as he turns upfield. We didn't have that, so that was sniffed out pretty fast.
Dennis Halteren of the St. Petersburg Griffins making the tackle. And that is the end of the first quarter of play. After 12 minutes, no score. Both teams, however, showing a little bit more offensive life here in the latter half of the quarter.
The thing that's interesting, you look at both teams, they're both running a very similar 4-3 shell in the middle with 4 DBs. The Russians haven't shown too much variation in what they're doing. The Dutch have been blitzing a little bit. So from an offensive standpoint, the coaches can come to the sideline, they can have their discussions, and they can think about different ways to exploit this if there's not much variation. Hardest thing for an offense is when they're varying the fronts, the blitzes, the coverages, and you're not really sure what it is you're going to be seeing from play to play.
They'll begin the quarter at the Russian 39-yard line, second down and 9. We'll say the one team, the Dutch looked like they had more life in the pregame. The Russians kind of looked a little out of sorts, but the defense, as the defense played very well on Friday, the defense playing well again today. Going deep down the field, he's got Jasper Van Doren just beyond his reach at the goal line.
That was so close to completion as well. Number 23 for the Russian team, the safety, seemed to lose the ball in the air a little bit. Some might have been in his eyes a bit, and the receiver was able to get around. The ball was just slightly underthrown, and he couldn't come back to it.
Yeah, it is a sunny morning here in Worcester. Perfect weather, so if you're within earshot of our voices, come on down, 2 p.m. for the championship game between the Czech Republic and Team GB. £5 parking, £5 entrance fee. Can't beat that. £2 for students. Come on down. Good afternoon of American football in store for you. Pass is complete on the near sideline. Again, that's Dylan Van Gerhart.
That's a nice chunk on third down, brings up fourth, but it just means that they've got the option now to go for it. Looks like the offense is going to be staying on the field.
4th and 4. Ball at the 34-yard line. Give in the middle, and he runs his way forward for a first down. Needed to get to the 30. He got to the 29.
That's great for the Dutch. Now they've got the momentum. Their sideline's really fired up. They're really loud now. They want to try and capitalize on this and score at the start of the second quarter.
So 1st and 10, ball at the 29-yard line. Dutch offense in business. Joost Holslag, the running back behind his quarterback. Back to pass. Steps up in the pocket, had his wide receiver, but good coverage on the play there by Konstantin Larikov.
You can see the quarterback there, he was just feeling the pressure from his left-hand side, and he just, as he was trying to throw the ball, timing was a little bit off, and that just dropped a little bit short of the intended receiver.
Second down and 10 now.
Be interested to see if the Dutch go back to the jet game that they had success with in the first quarter. Might give them a bit of a more manageable third down.
Sean Richard now in at running back. Richard gets the handoff. Little space opens up in the middle. He's down to the 25-yard line. We'll mark him at the 26. Gain of 3. So 3rd and 7 now coming up for the Dutch.
Be interesting to see what the Dutch do here as well. They're definitely within field goal range if they can't convert. And with a whole quarter down and no score, maybe they'll be thinking about points on the board.
They did kick a couple of field goals on Friday, so we know their kicking game is capable. Fake to Richard now. He swings it out to his wide receiver. He's got some space on that far sideline. Russian defense looks like they've kept him from the first down.
There you can see the difference when the outside receiver can actually sustain that block on the inside bubble screen. It gave the guy a chance to catch it, have a look, turn up field, and then gain some yards. And so we've gone from 3rd and 10 to 4th and 2.
There's Revelino Granust on the reception. 4th and 2 coming up. Offense will stay on the field, so no field goal attempt upcoming. And Richard stays in at running back. He has the ball. Russian defense does a nice job. It's going to be right at the marker. Russians believe they stopped him. The Dutch believe they got it.
I think he's going to be short.
From our angle, it looks like he's a little short, but they're going to go ahead and do a measurement.
See, the interesting here when you're thinking about game management and over the course of it, the Dutch went for a 4th down early in the first quarter, and that's fine. But as you get further and further into the game and you don't have points on the board, all of a sudden one big play and one momentum shift can change everything. We were playing Sterling in the university final a couple of years ago. It was 0-0 at the half, and it just takes that one shift of momentum to kind of change the whole complexion of the game.
And they are short of the first down. Turnover on downs, and the Russian defense holds once again on 4th down. Well, as you mentioned, you know, when clearly now we're seeing that points are at a premium. This is not going to be a high-scoring game.
Absolutely not.
Field goals now take on added importance.
And the problem is, if you don't have the confidence in your kicking team to be able to snap it, hold it, protect it, get the good connection on it, and have the accuracy, then you're really putting yourself at a disadvantageous position in the mix of the game, because you get into a position like that and you're not confident enough to send that group onto the field.
Russian offense will begin this possession just inside their 20. They have started to move the ball the last couple of times they had it. Give in the middle.
It's a nice gain on 1st down with the run.
That's number 28, Vladimir Kanchukovsky.
You all right with that name? You got that?
Yeah, Gesundheit. And again, it cannot be said enough. My apologies to the Dutch and Russian communities for the way I have butchered many of the names. Big play there. Again, Kevin Bourne continues to play in the Russian backfield.
He's playing as a stand-up end, so he's not in a three-point stance. He's able to get a lot more speed off the edge, and especially in the run game, they're having a very tough time on getting hands on him and blocking him, especially when the run comes his way.
The Russians do have a tight end on their roster. In fact, he's a tight end who plays over here in the UK. It's Alexander Koklov, or excuse me, I'm sorry, it's Sergei Kuzmin, plays for the Sussex Thunder. So if they need a little help, if that tackle needs some help on Kevin Bourne, there is a tight end who can assist him. Shorokov's pass is complete over the middle. We've got late flags coming in. May have a late hit on the quarterback.
Yeah, we noticed that he's been limping from a previous series as well. So if they're going to keep hitting the quarterback, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out.
Well, number 90 is the gentleman out of Boise State. It's Ricky Tungato. Did I say that right?
Number 90. Let's have a look.
It's Ricky. That's our friend from Boise State.
Chungajo? Yeah, I think I've got that.
He's our.
But we talked earlier in the first quarter about how those 15-yard penalties can change momentum. They've gone from 3rd and long and probably looking to punt, and now that roughing the passer penalty has just moved them up to midfield. Now the Russians have got a chance. But yeah, number 2, the quarterback, is definitely limping now.
He's limping, but he certainly showed much more life in this offense with him there than either of the 2 quarterbacks on Friday. So as long as he can go, they're going to keep him because he's done a nice job. Although, again, number 54, Kevin Bourne, right there to almost take the handoff.
Absolutely. And the thing that you can see now, the Russians have gone to a pro formation where they have a running back either side of the quarterback. That's trying to help them in the run game and put more blockers in front. But unfortunately, if you're not going to block 54, he is going to make the tackle.
One-man highlight reel right now going on for Kevin Bourne. 2nd down and 11. Back to pass. Running for his life on that right side. He's going to step out of bounds right at the line of scrimmage. May have even lost half a yard.
And that's the thing, we talk about different formations in the numbers game. By being in pro and doing things like that, there's going to be less receivers going out on the patterns. There's going to be more opportunity for the defense to cover there. Dutch are able to make substitutions now on 3rd down.
3rd and 10 for the Russians.
Bringing Jose Van Oosten, the defensive back who, slight bias, but used to play for the Birmingham Lions, was a fantastic DB for us there.
Shorokov calling the plays to his offense. He's got 3 wide receivers. There is a tight end in. That is Sergei. Completed pass on the far sideline. It's going to be short of the 1st down.
You'll probably see the Russians again go for it. We don't want to see much kicking game today here. Not much punting, not much field goal kicking.
He's 2 yards short. 4th and 2, and the Dutch defense changing personnel.
See, this is interesting. The Dutch are able to, even though the Russians are running a no huddle, the tempo is so slow. The Dutch are pretty much able to substitute half of their defense, and then the play is coming in, and the pace of it isn't sometimes what you'd expect from a no huddle offense.
We're big bodies now on the defensive line. Shorokov back to pass. He skips the pass short of his receiver, and a turnover on downs.
Yeah, you can see that both teams are able to get some kind of momentum. They can get chunk plays, they can move the ball, but both teams are getting stuck when it really matters on those key 4th downs, down in the red zone as well. So it's really, because both defenses have been able to figure out these offenses and the players, it's going to be down to who's going to be able to make a big play and ultimately who might make a mistake and let a big play go for long yardage or a touchdown.
We talked about this a little bit on Friday when, there's so much emphasis on arm strength of a quarterback, but once you get a quarterback out of his rhythm and his footwork starts to go, it really changes the way a passer throws the ball. And footwork is so important for good quarterbacking. Handoff to Richard.
There we go.
Across midfield, late flag coming in, thrown by the downfield official. So At the moment, the Dutch have a first down. We'll check the penalty. And it's going to be a face mask, so tack on another 15 yards. Richards' run to the 45 is going to move the ball all the way down to the 30-yard line.
Absolutely, and we were talking about the importance of the QB's footwork and fundamentals. And the last couple of conventions, there's always been guys come in talking from the States, talking about quarterbacks, and it always starts with the footwork and the hips and the way that can generate arm strength. It's not about having a cannon in that kind of respect. And when you can have a pass rush and you can get that QB moving, that's when they're going to be able to put under pressure, and that's when they're going to make mistakes.
1st and 10 now for the Dutch, ball at the 30-yard line of the Russians. And he's back to pass, looking for Van Doren. Good coverage there by the Russians.
And this is where we talk about the inexperience of the QB. You can see he's patting his chest there. That receiver took an outside release on the DB going deep down the field, and the ball got put inside. That's a bad leverage position for the receiver to try and get back across. If the ball went outside and pushed it a little bit further wider, he would have had a chance there to make the catch.
Second and 10 now for the Dutch. Nothing doing for the running back up the middle of the field. That's number 93, Roman Galev.
And the thing is, there was the starting running back for the Dutch came out earlier on in the series. They brought the number 20 in, and he hasn't had as much success, as much momentum there in the run game.
Loss of 3 yards on that, so 3rd and 13. You got another 3rd down and long. Although you've got to imagine that they're already thinking in 4-down territory, so no reason to try to get all 13 right here. You can get 6 or 7 yards, make it a manageable 4th down. Little pressure in the middle, he steps away from it. Throws behind his receiver, incomplete.
And again, we're talking about QB fundamentals there from someone's a little inexperienced. He's rolled out. He had to move to the side, and he hasn't reset his feet and his shoulders. And he's just he's throwing that behind the receiver because he hasn't been able to turn into that throws effectively. So it's just little things like that can affect how successful the passing game is.
So facing 4th down and 13, the Dutch have called a timeout to have a chat about it. Too far for a field goal. They look like they are planning to go for it here on 4th and 13. Just want to make sure everybody gets on the same page. 4:43 to go here in the first half. Still no score.
I think it's interesting now from an offensive point of view. You're looking at the Russians. They're playing that deep cover 4 zone. So if they're going to want to try and take a shot into the end zone, there's going to be a lot of people there. We saw them take a shot earlier on in the game, and it was double covered. There was nearly an interception. So they've got to be really careful thinking about what they're going to dial up here.
So it is number 20, Miguel Castellan, the running back in with quarterback Tom Van Duen. 3 wide receivers to his left. He's going to roll that way. Gets no help from his back, but back gets a nice block on the back end. Throws it downfield. Big catch there by number 7, Revelino Granust. And the Dutch have a first down.
That was a great effort there by the quarterback to get out of the pocket and get the throw off. With a rollout package like that, what you're looking for the running back to do is either block or do a cut block on the last guy on the end of the line of scrimmage. That didn't happen, and the defensive end was able to just rush up and try and affect the timing. But a great effort there to make the throw and to get the first down.
So big offensive play for the Dutch. They are in business inside the red zone. 1st and 10. The give in the middle. Steps away from it, gets a block on the edge. Has some space. Steps out of bounds inside the 5-yard line, or they'll call it or just short of the 5-yard line.
And that was a great job there by number 26, Kevin Wessling. As the play bounced to the outside, he was able to make a block on the edge and seal it. You had 2 Russian defenders falling over as well at the same time. That gave the running back the space to get up the sideline. Now we have 1st and goal at the 4. So at the 6-yard line, that's a great opportunity for them to put points up.
Well, and on that block, he kept his helmet in front of the man, which was oh so important and hard to do on a play like that.
Absolutely.
Change at quarterback. That's Sven Jansen. He's more of a running quarterback. He will keep it himself this time. Russian defense stuffs him in the backfield.
And that's the thing that you notice down the goal line. Everything gets condensed, everything gets squished up, and the space that you might have had earlier on isn't going to be there. So that little dive may have had more success in the middle of the field, but when everybody's a lot closer together, you have less success in the running game, especially up the inside.
Jansen lost a couple of yards back to the 8-yard line now, 2nd and goal, and he comes out. Van Dwien back in at quarterback.
He's got the out. Nice.
He's got his man in the end zone. Touchdown, Revelino Granust. And the Dutch are on the board first with 2:55 to go until halftime.
That's a really nice combination down there at the red zone. They had the outside receiver running a slant pattern inside, try and take the DB away. Then the slot guy was running a quick out, trying to run into the space. And it was a nice, easy read for the quarterback to make the throw.
Jasper Van Doren on for the extra point try.
At least they start to kick it now.
Bad hold, and yet somehow the kick goes through. See, that ball ended up on its side right as Van Doren's leg got there. Ball was hit by the defensive line and somehow made it over. On the scoreboard, though, it looks like a perfectly executed extra point.
Absolutely.
7-0 is your score now.
And the Dutch, they're going to get a sense of deja vu here. We've got 2 minutes 55 left in the half. They're up. They have the momentum now. They've got to build on what they learned from Friday and what happened in the second half and make sure that they don't get into a situation where they lose this advantage.
They did have a 13-0 lead at halftime on Friday. Went into a shell offensively and ended up losing that game 20-13. A lot of that credit goes to that Czech offense who came to life in the second half. Now Van Doren will do the kickoff duties for the Dutch. Back deep for the Russians, Dmitry Kulinic. Excuse me, that's number 80, not number 20, but he'll let it bounce over his head and into the end zone for a touchback. So a good kickoff there. The Dutch defense see if they can't hold this lead before halftime. 2:55 to go. Ball will be placed at the 20-yard line, 1st and 10 for the Russians.
I think the Dutch will be thinking about now is if they can get a quick stop, get the clock stopped there before the 2-minute warning, they're going to be able to get the ball back. They're going to have a couple of timeouts left, and they may be able to put some more points on the board going into halftime.
Dmitry Shorokov, the quarterback for the Russians. He gives to his running back in the middle. Ball comes free. And
still
bouncing around, bouncing into the end zone. The Dutch have it for a touchdown. Unbelievable play. And just like that, the Netherlands are in control.
That was such good work. That was such good work there by the defensive line of the Dutch. They were able to push the Russians back, and the running back didn't have much time to secure the handoff, get control of the ball, and it came out really quickly.
Hot potato football. Nobody could fall on it. Bounces into the end zone, and just like that, another touchdown for the Dutch. Van Doren on for another extra point. And still the scenario still exists where they have 2 timeouts. They have the 2-minute warning. There's 2:44 to go. There's no reason why that defense can't be thinking about another stop and possibly more points before halftime. Of course, the Russians must do something now to quell the momentum Van Doren's kick much more conventional this time and is through. 14-0 now in favor of the Dutch. Quite an 11-second sequence.
Absolutely. I mean, we talked about the slow start offensively for both teams within the space of a couple of minutes. And again, of maybe 20 seconds of gameplay, this game has just turned completely on its head. The Russians have now got to think about scoring points. They're playing catch-up in the game. That's going to play into the Dutch's hands defensively because now the Russians have to take the game to them.
Well, the Russians made an error at the end of the first half on Friday. They're trying to pick up some points through an interception and gave GB an easy field goal. See if they don't make that same mistake today. We also want to remind everybody that today's commentary is made possible by epsports.co.uk. EP have a great range of kit and merchandise, and as a company built by ballers, they have great advice. This stream is also brought to you by doublecoverage.com and Enrun Productions, and thanks to everyone for joining us this morning from Worcester. Kickoff return out across the 30-yard line.
It'll be interesting to see now how the Russians come back from that mistake with the fumble and see if they can make a drive and try and come back into this game before halftime.
Well, that was a running back that we had not seen before who fumbled that. He is not out there now. They're back to number 22, Anton Potapov, who we've seen for most of the first half. Shurikov is back to pass, running for his life, and holding penalty is going to come in. And he nearly throws an interception. Nice play there by number 4, Casper Bongarts. Just couldn't quite get to it. It is holding, however, against the Russian offensive line.
That was number 56, Rajiv Hui, who came through the line. And the Russian lineman had two choices, either let his QB get hit or hold him and delay the play somewhat. So he's taking the hold there, and that's going to back the Russians up even further.
That moves it back to the 21-yard line, 1st and 20 now. .228 on the clock. And Dmitry Sorokov, as you can see, is still limping, so making him run that much is exactly what the Dutch defense wants to do. Now pass on the near sideline.
Fumble, there's a fumble.
Ball comes free again. Dutch say they have it.
That might have been
one referee is signaling it down. A couple different referees are now saying that he was down.
That might have been a bit of an early whistle there by the side judge on this side. Maybe because the Dutch defender had a grasp, so there's no forward progress there, so they whistled it. Unfortunately, when that Dutch defender came in, the ball came out, and they thought they had a fumble.
They are signaling now that it's down, although there was going to be a little bit of a conference. And the head referee officially signals second down. Gain of 4. Now, if they blow the whistle before any kind of recovery was made, then consulting the replay won't make a difference, because obviously you cannot decide who would have recovered the fumble. So that whistle blows it dead. We are also at the 2-minute warning. 2nd and 16 for the Russians. They dodge another bullet right there.
They're 5 wide now, so they're clear passing down here.
Shurikov is back to pass, getting some pressure. He steps away from it, goes downfield, has a man. Good coverage on the play, and knocked down. 3rd down coming up.
It's interesting because you see so often, especially in a situation like that, the DB and the receiver together. The DB doesn't turn his head around, and the receiver ends up getting a 15-yard penalty there for interference. So number 6 there did a great job, Dennis DeWitt, of getting his head around, breaking up the pass, and then now they're in 3rd and long. Back in 5 wide receivers again.
3rd and long and an opportunity to get the ball back into their offense's hand before halftime. Shorokov rolls to his right, and he is going to go down in a heap. It's a tough place to take a sack because now they're facing 4th down back inside their own 15-yard line. They have to punt, but the Dutch are going to look at excellent field position here. Still 1:38 on the clock, and the Dutch with 2 timeouts still remaining.
Absolutely. They just took a timeout there to stop the clock with the punt and the return of the punt. They're probably going to be looking at getting the ball between the 40 and 50. So they're going to be looking at putting together a 2-minute drive with about 50 yards to go and trying to put another score on the board before they're going at halftime.
That is their 2nd timeout, so they'll have 1 more timeout remaining offensively.
And the thing is, with the Russians backed up so much here, they've got to think about the snap, they've got to think about the catch, and being able to get the kickoff on time. And when you're backed up, the pressure always ramps up just a little bit more. You know the Dutch are going to be bringing a little bit extra pressure on this punt block.
When you think about this game, with 4 minutes to go in the 2nd quarter, basically we had a draw being played. 2 teams seem to be going toe-to-toe and quite equal. Now all of a sudden the Dutch firmly in control at 14-0. Kick is away. It's a low line drive kick. Takes a Russian bounce. Dutch player thought about coming up and trying to scoop it. Wisely stayed away. Ball down at the 47-yard line. Call it the 48, and that's where the Dutch will take over.
And they talk about it all the time in the NFL about winning the turnover battle, and that's always a key stat line to look at. That the fumble recovery for a touchdown just turned the game completely on its head. It put the Russians in a bit of a bind. And now the Dutch have got a chance to capitalize here.
Clock showing 1:29. Sven Jensen back in at quarterback for the Dutch. Sven, not your typical quarterback build, 5'11", 223 pounds. He's going to keep it himself, has some space in the middle of the field. He's down near the 1st down marker. As you mentioned, last time he kept it, they were at the far end of the field. Defense is bunched, and you even said that kind of play works well at the middle of the field, and there you go, a 10-yard gain.
Absolutely.
And a 1st down.
And you saw the Czechs do a lot of this on Friday. They would leave the defensive end. The tackle then goes to the 2nd level, and that's the read guy for the quarterback. As the end goes towards the running back, he pulls the ball, and he's got an extra blocker in the 2nd level. That was a great job trying to get the 1st down there.
Clock down to 1:06. We do play NCAA rules, so the clock stops as the 1st down chains are being moved. He's now looking to pass. A little unsure, goes to his outlet on the far sideline. Looked like he could have stepped out of bounds. They're going to say he stayed in bounds, so kind of a mistake there by the wide receiver.
That's the thing. You could see that there were defenders in front of him. He just needed to think about getting to the sidelines there, not being clever, stop the clock, and then allow the Dutch time to regroup. But unfortunately, now they're going to be in hurry up because the clock is ticking.
It's going to cost them about 20 seconds of play. We're down to 27 seconds now on the clock. He's got Van Doren. Van Doren reaching forward, has a 1st down. The clock will stop as the chains move. 18 seconds now.
That's a really good job by the running back there, number 20. Saw that the defensive end was unblocked, managed to cut him, and managed to just hold that pocket long enough for the quarterback to get the ball out.
Clock has started inside 13 seconds now. Quarterback needs to do a better job of getting this play called. A lot of time ticking away, down to 7 seconds. He's taking his time. He's going to take a sack. And with the clock has expired, we'll see if the referees looked like he went down with 1 second left. We'll see if they want to put that 1 second back on the clock or if that is the end of the half.
See, this is the reason why it's so important to be practicing situations repeatedly and making sure that people are aware of them. Because here, in that 2-minute drill, we saw the receiver on the left-hand side not get out of bounds. We saw them not taking a timeout there. And then really all of the time's expired and it's given them very few options. We've seen the fact that they haven't kicked a long field goal all game, and now they're going to be looking at...
Here we are. This is going to be a 49-yarder. It is the quarterback, Tom Van Dwin, who's going to be taking it. They did put the 1 second back on with time for one more play. 49-yard field goal attempt. Flags are flying. Badly missed. See what the penalty is. It's going to be a false start on the Dutch.
And you see here how the Dutch did so well on those first few plays, moving the change, getting into position, and now they're going to be 5 yards back and an even longer field goal with the fact that there wasn't a good connection there by the kicker.
Well, based on the kick that he just did, I think that they might be better served just to throw it up and go for a Hail Mary, because 54 yards, there's no wind at his back. They are going to go ahead and kick it again. This will be a very long field. Now they're setting,
and you can see they've got the two Russian players back here. They know that if they can catch that clean, they've got a chance at a return. This could be a big momentum shift if they catch it clean and the ball doesn't make the distance.
Kick is well short. Kulinic returns it from his goal line. Kevin Bourne wraps him up, of course. Kevin Bourne making the final tackle of the half.
And the thing is, the Dutch are going to go to halftime now. Obviously, they're 14 to nothing up, and they're happy. But they had a real chance there to get at least 3 points if they'd have worked a little bit cleverer with the clock and being able to manage it leading into the 2-minute drill.
Yeah, those last 3 or 4 plays, they made a couple of clock management errors, perhaps cost them a few points, but they do have to feel very good. Again, 4 minutes to go, and we were at 0-0. It's now 14-0 in favor of the Dutch. Clearly the momentum is on their side. And if you're the Russian coach now, what do you tell your team as you get prepared for the second half? How do you get them ready? How do you get them to forget about those last 3 minutes of football?
Absolutely. I think you've got to say to them that really, with the mistakes that were made, they were putting themselves in a hole. It wasn't the fact that the Dutch were doing anything particularly special to beat them. It was the fact that there were the personal foul penalties. We had the fumble at the goal line there. There was nothing out of the ordinary that they weren't able to accommodate and adapt to. So I think it's a case of calming them all down, making sure that people aren't too frustrated coming back into the second half. And I think it's understanding where the Russians have had some offensive strengths. They have been able to move the ball. They've had 2 or 3 drives where they've gone down inside of the 30-yard line, and it's just a case now of reconsolidating and saying, right, we've got this, guys. We just need to make sure we're a little bit crisper. We're not making mistakes in the end, down in the red zone, and let's get some points on the board.
Well, certainly with Dmitry Shorokov at quarterback, they've shown far more offensive life today than they did on Friday, and that's something for them to build on, I would think, absolutely. And they got to figure out how to block Kevin Bourne.
Yeah, number 54, Kevin Bourne, has just been an absolute demon on the outside for the Dutch, and if they can block him, they may have some more success.
So again, our halftime score here at the Sixways Stadium in Worcester, 14-0 in favor of the Dutch. We're going to go ahead and pause for halftime, but be sure to join us because I'm sure the second half is going to be excellent. And obviously the big game, 2 o'clock between GB and Czechs and the Czech Republic for the championship of this weekend's qualifying.
That was going to be a boring game to start with.
they were NAI at the time. They're now Division Two, but they're in the conference that they were in. A lot of the schools didn't play football; they just played basketball in some of the schools, and so they had to go out of conference for most of their football schedule. So they played the Luzerne every year, and I worked with a guy who was he played football for Luzerne in college. Patrick O'Neill.
Yeah.
I worked at Fox Sports for a long time in LA, and he was one of our anchors. Had been a player for Luzerne. And one of my favorite Mexican restaurants is in Luzerne. So.
Well, the thing is, when I went out there, they were like, "You got to go try In-N-Out. You got to try the In-N-Out." And I went there, and it was just, "Oh my god, this is ridiculous."
Yeah,
It's good.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be there next week. Going back to Kansas City this coming weekend for a Chiefs game. Then go to LA to see my parents. Usually within the first 3 or 4 hours of the game on the ground, I get an In-N-Out burger. And maybe before getting on the plane back, fly back here, grab another In-N-Out.
Yeah, definitely. But no, it was good because I managed to take in a few restaurants. So we went to, I can't remember, it's just outside of Bern. It's almost like Benihana's restaurant. I can't remember the name of it. But like one of these like Japanese.
It's not Benihana's?
No, it's basically the same kind of deal there, and that was incredible. That was some really nice food.
We need to move downstairs for the last, because I've got it turned the right way up, but I can't hear the chatter still through the mics. So if you want to just run down the ladder and I'll see if I can find you some food.
Okay.
Or actually, whilst we get food in the break between games.
Hey, dude.
I'm going to run to the toilet.
2 thumbs, just to be sure. Are we going to have the screen working this half? Is the screen going to be working for the second half? Nah, it's just frozen. Cheers. Yeah.
We can come back whenever you guys
Yeah, it's
are
just
ready.
like knowing, especially after the play, just knowing who's, like, when they're zooming in on people and stuff. But to be fair, we're getting that in our ears as well.
Are we ready to come back at all? Welcome back to Sixways Stadium in Worcester. Second half of action here between the Netherlands and Russia getting ready to kick off. It'll be the Dutch kicking off this time to the Russians. All the momentum in the Netherlands' favor after that end of that first quarter or first half. Tremendous last 3 minutes of football for them. Kickoff taken the 12-yard line, some space in the middle, but quickly closed down. Returning out to the 25-yard line, that's where the Russian offense will take over.
Absolutely, and looking at this second half now, the Russians on offense, they need to think about how they're going to block 54. They need to think about how they're going to accommodate him in the running game. And also just being able to sustain drives and not stalling as they get over halfway.
Change at quarterback for the Russians. It's Igor Chulanutsky. He's the one who started on Friday night. He's going to keep it himself, nowhere to go. Runs into about 5 orange jerseys.
Interesting that I just mentioned that about the linebackers. Both Kevin Bourne and Kenny Villan are sat on the sideline. So the Dutch are starting with backup linebackers in. So it'll be interesting to see if they can have the same kind of success that they did in the first half in the running game.
Well, a nice job defensively there. 2nd down and 10 now for the Russians. Are you surprised at all that the Russians have changed quarterback? They seem to move the ball all right with Dmitry Shorokov at quarterback.
Absolutely, but we noticed that there was mobility issues. So if that was going to hinder him, then maybe the change needed to be made.
And he was limping at the end of the half there. Pass is dropped. Do have a flag coming in.
And the umpire got caught up in the tackle on the quarterback there, and actually the umpire's down as well.
Uh-oh, he is down. We're going to have medical treatment come out and make sure our umpire's all right.
That was really impressive by the Russian quarterback. He was able to get the ball away even though he knew the pressure was coming, even though he knew that the hit was coming as well. And that's probably one of the hardest throws to make. You know you're getting hit anyway, but you've got to try and remember your fundamentals. You've got to try and remember where the player is and try and hit him in his stride. And unfortunately, the receiver couldn't come up with the ball there.
It's a holding penalty, will be 10 yards. So the Russians will now have a 2nd down and 20 after the penalty.
Yeah.
Everybody seems okay. Again, that's the end of the field where we're kind of obscured. We've got a scaffolding and the rafters here kind of in our way. Crouching down to try to see the play. Now, the quarterback calling the play. He is back to pass. Has his man across the middle.
It's interesting, the Dutch have come out in a little bit of a different scheme in this half. In the first half, they were playing 2 shell with the safeties. Now they're playing a 1 high safety, and they're playing 4 linebackers DBs underneath. So they're trying to match up against this spread offense of the Russians.
Well, nice job on 2nd and 20 to pick up 12 yards and make it a makeable 3rd down now, 3rd down and 8. Throws it a little too high, and it's bobbled and intercepted. Number 47 of the Dutch, that's linebacker Indemar Bernadius, he comes down with the tip ball.
And that's the thing, I was just talking about that defensive scheme, that the DBs against the slots and the outsides, they were playing in man coverage there, and when the Russians were running that crossing pattern, the DBs were able to sit and follow it. The ball wasn't thrown with a lot of velocity. It gave a good chance for the DBs to make a play on the ball there.
Sven Jansen, who finished the half for the Dutch at quarterback, will begin the third quarter under center. Lining up with him at running back is Miguel Castellan.
And today's commentary is made possible by epsports.co.uk. EP have a great range of kit and merchandise, and as a company built on ballers, they have great advice too. This stream is brought to you by doublecoverage.com and Endrun Productions.
Looks like the officials taking a look at that interception. Video replay review going on. A first this weekend. We saw that on Friday. No plays were overturned on Friday. We did have a penalty, however, overturned earlier today. Early personal foul along the sideline was wiped away because of replay.
It'll be interesting to see now with the number 2 for the Dutch line, Sven Jansen, coming in. They had a lot of success with him running the read option offense, being able to move around in the pocket and throw the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to change up their offensive game plan in this second half.
And the review is confirmed. Interception and turnover now. Dutch taking command inside the 40-yard line. Tom Van Wyn, who began the game at quarterback, number 87, he is on the sideline. One of the top wide receivers for this team as well. We'll see if he gets in there and plays a little at wideout. Jansen keeps the ball, takes it down to the 30-yard line.
And we can see again what he brings to this offense. He rode the running back all the way through the mesh point there. They left the defensive end, they were reading him, and then the offensive line were able to create the blocks in the second level. This is what we call the veer, where the quarterback takes that ball, he reads it, and then he works up with it and rushes as a running back there.
It's a good 6-yard gain, 2nd and 4 coming up for the Dutch. And he overthrows his man, looking for Revelino Granhust on the near sideline. So Sven Jansen came in and played in the second half in that game on Friday. Was a little down on himself. He was taking the loss and the comeback win by the Czechs a little personal. So it'd be great to see him perform well here, kind of regain some of that confidence he had.
Absolutely, and it looks like early on they're putting plays together that are going to give him confidence, are going to let him build into this game a lot more effectively.
Well, you can see his skill set is slightly different than the quarterback we saw earlier. He's more of a running quarterback, has a little space. He's going to go ahead and take off with it now. He's got a first down and lots of space in the middle. First down inside the 20-yard line of the Russians.
And that's the thing that you have to accommodate as a defense. Yes, you're going to be looking at the 4 eligible receivers. Yes, you've got the running back to think about. But when that QB steps up and then becomes a rusher, that creates a lot of different problems for a defense, because not a lot of them will account for the quarterback in their zones and in their man schemes. So that's going to give the Dutch an added weapon in what they're trying to do.
Ball at the 18-yard line, 1st and 10. Dutch leading 14-0. 9:20 on the clock here in the third quarter, early going. He's got Wesseling on the outside. We're going to have a holding penalty, however. Yeah, number 89 getting flagged there by a couple of different officials.
We talked in the first half when the Dutch run that jet sweep game, how important it is on the edge to be able to set it, because the Russians came up as a force and were able to put pressure on. The receiver was forced to make the hold, and that's where the penalties come from.
So that'll push the ball back to the 28. Still first down, 1st and 20 now. Dutch an opportunity to go up 3 touchdowns in a game where the Russian offense certainly doesn't look capable of scoring 3 touchdowns. Hate to see that opportunity wasted by the Dutch if they can't convert here by making penalties, pushing themselves back and out of field goal range. Jensen's going to keep it, delivering a couple of blows. Not your typical quarterback right there.
That's the thing, you can see that the veer is going to be a big part of their offense in this second half. They're really enjoying that read action, looking at what the defensive end is doing, and they're going to be able to pick up that yards that way. And I suppose he's going to give an extra, we talked about that extra dimension that he has compared to the quarterback in the first half. It just opens up that playbook a little bit more for the Dutch.
Quarterbacks don't generally like contact, but he certainly looked like he was seeking it out there as he lowered his shoulder. And he is a load, 5'11", 223 pounds. Also, because of his, he runs about 5-6 inches shorter than the other quarterback. He kind of gets lost in there too. Hand off to Castellan. He's got some space on the right side. Slips a tackle. Gets back inside the 20-yard line.
That was a great job by the running back there, Miguel Castellan. He was able to get a lot of yards there with not much blocking, and really got to the edge there and set up a manageable 3rd and 10.
Tony Simmons, the head coach of the Russian team, played in the NFL, was a 2nd-round draft pick of the New England Patriots, spent 5 years as a wide receiver in the NFL. He's now bounced around internationally, was the coach in India for the first ever American football game in India, coached in Sao Paulo, Brazil, coached in Norway, and now the head coach of the Russian national team. Jansen's pass incomplete on 3rd down.
See, that's a tough throw there for the quarterback. They're on the right hash. He's throwing an out route to the left-hand side of the field. That's a long way to throw the ball.
Alexander
Spichkin.
Yeah, Alexander Spichkin, the defensive back who was on the coverage there. The Dutch, who said no thanks to a couple of field goal opportunities in the first quarter, are now going to go ahead and bring on Jasper Van Doorn for a 35-yard attempt here. Hold is down, the kick is up, and it is good. Good from 35 is Van Doorn, and the Dutch now go up 17-0.
And this is what we talked about in the first half, being able to go down into the red zone, put points on the board. It just helps them, especially at the end of the game. If the Russians are able to come back and score a couple of touchdowns, that field goal is always going to be there as an extra score that they've got to think about.
I was talking to some of the referees before the game today. Of course, BAFA doing a nice job of organizing and getting referees for our weekend series. It's an international mix. We got a couple of Russian referees out there, a couple of Irish referees out there, a few great British referees out there. They've done a nice job of communicating as a group, even though maybe language isn't the first language isn't always shared.
Absolutely, and it's a great opportunity for BAFA coming into the uni ball season and the summer next year as well, to be able to recruit and get more referees involved in the game, because that's going to help the game at all levels.
Well, certainly the 2 games on Friday, the referees did an excellent job. No problems here today so far. The referees have done a fine job of calling this game. Some space on that left sideline, out across the 40-yard line. So a good kickoff return by the Russians. They'll have good field position to start this possession.
And that's the thing, at the very least here, the Russians need to be able to change the field position game. They need to be able to finish off a drive, even if it's a turnover or if it's points, by getting them down into the red zone. The Russians need to do something positive here, starting in going into the 3rd quarter.
Chernolutsky will start at quarterback this possession. That's number 10. He played the entire first half on Friday. Handoff in the middle and nothing doing. Again, the Dutch defense collapsing on him. And Not a surprise, number 54, Kevin Bourne, making the play. He has been all over the place. 6'4" defensive lineman plays for the Amsterdam Crusaders. Tremendous first half, picking right up where he left off here in the third quarter.
And that's the thing, he's playing that stand-up position on the end of the line of the defensive line. Now he's going to a three-point stance, but either one is very tough to block.
Another handoff in the middle, and again, nowhere to go. That's Pavel Korashilov.
And the thing is now, as the Dutch defense, they've seen 2 runs for no gain. It's third down. It's a clear passing situation here, so they can dial up a little bit of a blitz. They know that the Russians are going to have to push the ball vertically to get the first down. It gives them some options to think about.
3rd and 10. It's the Dutch getting some pressure in the middle. He's got a man. Nice job. Nice, excellent catch there by number 87. That's Alexander Koklov.
And this is the thing that I think the Russians might have been thinking about at halftime in bringing Chernolytsky in as the quarterback. It gave them the opportunity to stretch the field and take a couple more shots downfield than maybe they had in the first half with their other quarterback.
Hurry up offense now by the Russians. They are back to the line of scrimmage, not allowing the Dutch to make any defensive substitutions. Looked like number 57 or 56, Rajev Huli, might have been on the back of the receiver, but no flag on the play. 2nd and 10. Three wide receivers lined up to the right of Chernolytsky. He's going to look to his left. His running back makes the catch, tackled down at the 20-yard line.
And that was a really nice job there by the running back Kroshilov, because what he did, he was able to chip Bourne, the linebacker who's been giving them a lot of problems in the pass rush game, then get out into the flat and catch the ball. So it was a really nice job there by the running back.
Gain of 4 yards brings up 3rd down and 6. Again, 3 wide receivers to the right-hand side. That's the direction he's going to look. Got a man cutting across the middle of the field, well short of a first down.
Quarterback there was able to call an audible and change the play. I suppose it's always handy when you speak an entirely different language to the team that you're playing, because they haven't got a clue what you're saying.
Do a nice job there of at least making a very, putting it into a position for a very makeable 4th down, 4th and 1. Russians there, deepest penetration. They fumble the snap. Ball is free, and it looks like the Dutch do have it.
See, this is the interesting thing. From the pre-game all through the game, the Russians have solely been a shotgun snap team. QB's been 5 or 6 yards away, and that one time where they wanted to go under center and run a QB sneak, the timing wasn't there between the center and the QB. The exchange wasn't there. Now they've turned it over, and now the Dutch have got the ball back.
Casper Bongart's the linebacker making the recovery for the Dutch. Well, and again, they gifted 7 points to the Dutch with a fumble at the end of the second quarter. They've now cost themselves an opportunity to score points with a fumble deep in the red zone. And the turnover battle being won by the Dutch, making all the difference right now. Some spacing on the far side. Nice job there by Revelino Granhust. Short pass, but he does well with his feet. Takes it downfield out across the 30-yard line, and just like that, the Dutch no longer backed up.
Yeah, and you can see how the Dutch now capitalizing on this momentum, on the mistakes that the Russians are making. We have the turnover there. The Russians had them backed up in bad field position, and this first down has just flipped it and made it a little bit more comfortable for them to move.
You talked about Sven Jansen getting plays that'll make him confident, continually be successful, make him feel better in the offense. These are not difficult passes to make, but it's moving the chains. Castellan looking for one extra block, does not get it. Driven out of bounds, perhaps a yard short of the line of scrimmage.
And it's clear that Castellan's got a lot of speed in that running back position, but he's had 2 outside zone runs now where he has literally had to head to the sideline to find space because he's not had the blocking inside to be able to cut up and make significant yardage.
That was Dmitry Kulinich on the tackle for the Russians. 2nd down and 11 for the Dutch. 3:40 to go here in the 3rd quarter. Now 3 wide receivers lined up to Johnson's left-hand side. That's the direction he'll look. It looks like not everybody on the same page.
Yeah, both the 2 slot receivers there were running vertically down the field, trying to find the hole in that seam. Looked like the QB put it behind him, not really sure which guy he was trying to throw to there.
So 3rd down and 11, and again, we talked about this earlier. The Dutch have completely changed the way they're playing this game versus Friday. Friday, quick offenses, right up to the line of scrimmage, no substitutions. Today, they're huddling. And contrast that with the Russians, who were going no huddle on their last series.
Absolutely, and when you huddle, it just slows it down for the quarterback, gives him time to think about what he's doing.
Jansen keeps it, stacked up at the line of scrimmage. Well, and right now, too, the clock, the friend of the Dutch, they don't have any problem with running as much clock off they can between plays.
Absolutely. I mean, 3rd and 10 there. You're looking at an obvious blitzing situation by the Russian defense. And when you're going to be running those run plays, the lanes that were there previously are going to be clogged up a little bit more.
So on 4th and 12, they will punt. Jasper Van Doren on to punt for the Dutch team. Van Doren, of course, plays for the London Blitz, wide receiver. So he was just on this field 3 weeks ago at the Brit Bowl.
That's
good coverage there by the Dutch punt team. That was Pavel Voronenko on the return. Got the ball at the 43-yard line is where they're going to mark it. Make that the 42, and that is where the Russian offense will take over.
You talk about Brit Bowl a few weeks ago. You look at the makeup of the GB roster for the game this afternoon. There's a lot of guys on both teams who are going to be wearing the colours for GB. So just shows how good the level is at the top end of the sport here.
The handoff in the middle. Nowhere to go. That's number 79, Dennis Niemeyer making the tackle. He's 6'7", 320 pounds. That's a lot of beef in the middle. Nicky Baker came off a little gingerly after that punt. He's now getting some attention from the training staff. Looks like an ankle issue, maybe just a cramp.
We saw that the Russians had some success with the downfield passing game. With their one high safety, it's easy to go vertical because there's that guy patrolling the middle of the field. They're going to need to do that more as they try and get back into the game.
Passes behind his receiver. That is incomplete. That was a forward pass, not a fumble.
And again, they've put themselves into this situation. They've got a long 3rd down. The Dutch can do a lot of different things now defensively. Their 1st and 2nd down play calls are really putting themselves in a bind.
So 3rd and 9 coming up. Three wide receivers to Chernolytsky's right-hand side. And a bull rush just comes right up the middle. Chernolytsky gets rid of it, but incomplete. Again, it was number 79, Dennis Niemeyer, just throwing his offensive lineman onto his back.
That is a big Dutch defensive line, and the Russians are having a lot of trouble blocking that up, give their quarterback time to throw the ball. We
were commenting earlier about the amount of bananas and cucumbers on the Dutch sideline. I don't think those guys are getting that size from eating a lot of cucumbers.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. There's no gains to be had there with the cucumbers.
Punt is short, does take a Russian bounce inside the 25-yard line. They'll down it at the 22, and that is where the Netherlands will take over with 1:27 to go here in the third quarter.
And they're bringing number 87 back out onto the field to play quarterback, Tom Van Duyn. So they're really rotating their quarterbacks now, and you can see that they're going to have two different kinds of offense for it. When they have 87 in, they're going to be throwing the ball, they're going to be doing more things like that. When number 2's in the field, Sven Janssen, that's where they're going to be running that read option. There's going to be more QB runs, so they're trying to vary it up now to confuse the Russian defense.
Do see now on the sideline, Sean Richard, the starting running back, has his shoulder pads off, so he looks like he's done for the day. That's Joost Holslag in at running back for the Dutch now, number 14. Van Duyn back to pass. Good move to the outside by the wide receiver. We have a pass or a flag thrown well downfield by the umpire on that sideline. See what the call is.
The thing is, the way the Russians are playing that soft cover 4, their corners are playing quite far back, so it's easy for the quarterback to take that ball, just pitch it out on the hitch to the receiver, and they got 9 yards on that play. Sets up a manageable second down after the flag.
Penalty will be declined by the Dutch. They'll take a second down and 2. Or now the chains are being moved, so it's a first down. So they're marking it at the 31-yard line, but they were at the 22. So that is not a first down. The chains will have to move back.
Yeah, they got 1 yard to go for the first.
So a slight miscommunication has now been ironed out. Second down coming up. Van Duyn has a man wide open, just one step too far in front of him.
And that's the first time the Dutch have really taken a shot downfield. They had the man with about 5 yards of space. If he caught that, he was not going to get touched on his way into the end zone.
That was Ashneil Werleman.
But that's what's good about having 2nd and 1. You can take that shot and come back and know that 3rd and 1's an extremely manageable down to keep rolling on your drive.
And that now puts something in the backs of these defensive backs for the, or in the minds of the defensive backs here for the Russians. Maybe you hang back an extra couple of steps now, and that further opens up the short passing game. Handoff to the running back. He's got lots of space in the middle of the field. Big hit there at the end, but he's down to the 45-yard line. And a Russian is down on the play. That's Dmitry Kulinich.
So that was interesting what the Russians did there. They switched to basically a cover 0 where they had no safeties deep in the field. What the safety who was free did came off the edge there, blitzing. He was beaten to the edge there by the running back, and he was able to get up the side and get a big gain for the first down.
We'll check the status of Kulinich. He's down and being attended to now by the medical staff. The ball is at the 45-yard line. 57 seconds still remain here in the third quarter. Good to see Kulinich popping up under his own power, and he'll walk off on his own power. Might have just had the wind knocked out of him. If you've ever had that happen, it feels like you are going to die.
Absolutely.
And then about 40 seconds later, you're okay. As we mentioned, Dmitry Kulinich earlier, he did have the interception early in that game against GB on Friday night. Pass incomplete on the far sideline. There's good coverage there by Nikita Strokov, defensive back for the Moscow Patriots. 2nd and 10 coming up for the Dutch. So again, very deliberately, the offense is huddling up. They're not doing the kinds of hurry-up stuff they did on Friday night. Content to slow the pace of this game down. They're up 17-0 here in the closing seconds of the 3rd quarter. Back to pass. Near sideline.
And again, that's a nice play call by the Dutch offensive coordinator. He's able to get that soft coverage, run the hitch, get a nice quick pass to the receiver, and now we're looking at 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, which is a lot more manageable.
A late flag came in by the official downfield. The Dutch sideline was wanting a late hit. I thought it was the appropriate decision to not throw the flag, but one umpire or one referee down the 20-yard line decided to throw his flag. And that is going to be a late hit on the Russians, so it'll be an automatic 1st down.
I think what's caught them out a couple of times here is they've got the ball carrier in the grasp and they're running him out of bounds, and he's quite clearly going out of bounds, and then that 2nd and 3rd person comes in unnecessarily. I think that's what the referees are calling, just to maintain player safety. The Russians got to be careful of that.
Russians pleading their case to the officials to no avail. Ball now at the 24-yard line. That is where the Dutch have it, 1st and 10.
You can argue all you want, but the ref's probably not going to change his call.
We're down to 10 seconds remaining in the 3rd quarter. Clock is ticking. This will be the final play of the quarter.
Ooh.
Looking for the end zone. He's got his man. And out of the back of the end zone, incomplete. And that is where the quarter will end. 17-0 the Dutch with 12 minutes left to play here at Sixways.
That was a really nice play there. They had the outside receiver run a hitch and go, try and get the defensive back to bite. And what the quarterback did as well at the same time is he just gave that little pump fake with the shoulders, made it look like he was throwing the ball, and that gave the separation to try and get the receiver over the top, and he just overthrew it a little bit.
As the two teams flip sides, we'll take a chance to thank very much our sponsors today. The commentary made possible by epsports.co.uk. EP, they have a great range of kit and merchandise. They're also a company built by ballers, which means they have great advice too. Stream also brought to you by doublecoverage.com and our friends at N-Run Productions. Thank you to everybody. And of course, big thanks to BAFA for the way they've organized this weekend. European qualifying football. It's been a terrific weekend. 2 games on Friday, then last night the GB women's team in a friendly against Spain won 33-0. I know that's certainly something that program loves to see. And here we are today in our 4th of the 5 games. The Netherlands leading 17-0 on the Russians. 1 more quarter to go. And then 2 o'clock today, the big one, the championship game, to see who advances to play Sweden between Team GB and the Czech Republic. The handoff to Castellan in the middle. Picks up a couple of yards.
I think you mentioned there with the GB ladies team, that's probably something BAFA have been putting a lot of time and resources into in the last few years in building that sport up from pretty much nothing. Now there are a number of hub teams around the country. They run regular tryout days. They run regular camps. The Diamond Series is very successful. The Opal Series is also really, really popular as well. And it gives the opportunity for the ladies game in this country to really flourish and play international games and to dominate. They absolutely dominated the Spanish last night, building up to their European Championships that are coming next year.
3 wide receivers lined up to the right side. 3rd down and 8 for the Dutch. Quarterback will roll to his right. Tough for a left-hander. He's got his receiver on the near sideline, but he steps out of bounds right after making the play.
Absolutely, and this is sometimes the problem you get when you have a lefty and a righty as an offensive coordinator. Sometimes you forget that maybe that rollout game's going to give you success, but that lefty's got to get around, he's got to turn his shoulders, and that's going to make it hard for him to get the same timing as if he was rolling to his dominant side.
So on 4th and 7, the Dutch will go for it. Again, back to the GB women. I know that they had played down in Spain, so it was a nice little home-and-home friendly. Talking to the coaches on Friday, you could see a lot of mutual respect, a lot of admiration for both teams. The coaches really like each other. The players really like each other. Snap through the hands of DeWin, but he's recovering and running, and finally he is brought down. So not the best 4th down play by the Dutch. They will turn it over to the Russians.
Because they tried that rollout game to the left where it'd be a bit more advantageous to the quarterback. But as I said in the first half, the key to that game is having the running back being able to block that perimeter, maybe perform a cut block on the end or the linebacker. Otherwise, the QB's timing is going to be off, and he's not going to be able to set and throw more as effectively as he wants to.
So the Russians will begin this possession at their own 33-yard line. Cherlanutsky stays in at quarterback. Empty backfield. Has his running back short on the right side. Out across the 40-yard line. So a good 7-yard pickup there on 1st down.
Jose Van Oosten, number 32 in there on the tackle, the former Birmingham Lion, who's now down at the London Blitz as well.
Second down and 3. Number 81 makes the catch. He's right at the marker. He leans ahead for the 1st down.
And you can see the Russians are changing their approach to the game now. They are hurrying up the pace. There's a lot of dink and dunk passes. They're not trying to run the ball because they haven't had much success of it at all. And this negates the speed that the linebackers and the defensive linemen have in getting to the quarterback and affecting the tempo. So this is looking a little bit better for the Russians as they try and come back into this game.
Well, there's no reason to try to get it all at once. They can get it in chunks, and they're moving the chains here. A little sign of life for their offense. Quarterback steps up in the pocket. He now has some space, but linebacker Rajev Hui.
And you notice that this quarterback, he doesn't have quite the speed of Janssen, the running quarterback for the Dutch. So when he does decide that he wants to run, he's not going to get that many yards because the defense is going to be able to converge on him a lot quicker.
Russian player down in the backfield. Looks like number 53. That's Stanislav Rashitsky. He's an offensive lineman for the Moscow Patriots. So it's not that this game is out of hand. There's still 9 minutes to go. The Russians are in this, but the last thing you want to see is anybody get hurt here in the final moments of this game.
Absolutely, and that means they're going to have to bring a backup offensive lineman in, and he's probably been stood on the sideline for 3 quarters, not really into the flow of the game as much, so the Dutch might be able to capitalize on that particular part of the offensive line.
He's got some teammates giving him some water, cooling him down with a little spray to the face. Opportunity for Chulinatsky to talk to his wide receivers as they've got a pause in the action.
I think as you're looking at what the Dutch have been doing on this series, they've stayed in that one safety high look where they're playing a lot of man on those slot defenders. So this is where the short passing game is going to come open from the Russians. And if they can just keep dinking and dunking it down the field, that's going to give them a good opportunity to score.
Still can't quite identify what it is they're checking on the injured Russian.
Looks like his knee or his ankle.
Yeah, he did start off on his front and it's been rolled over onto his back, so it's not anything up near the head or the neck. It's like they're down by his ankles. It's like his left ankle is being checked by the physio.
And the thing I always notice, especially when you look at the size of some of these players at international level, when they're around all the rest of their players, they don't look that big. When the physios start to carry them off, they look like giants.
Dutch team taking an opportunity to get some hydration. It's just your typical high sunny afternoon here in England.
Typical
as,
sunny
as
afternoon.
it always is
Absolutely,
in England.
absolutely. We are blessed with this weather all year round.
So he's being taken off on the Dutch sideline and going to be back into the locker room where he will receive further treatment. As you can see, not putting any pressure on that left foot. Like they could have used a couple of bigger guys to help him off
absolutely.
the field.
Gone are the days where they put him on a stretcher and try to carry him off.
But good to see him at least able to get off with one foot working. The Dutch will give him one of their chairs. It's one of the nice things about a sport like this that is still in a bit of a niche market here in Europe. Everybody kind of feels like they're all in it together, and so even though these are opponents on the field, they're all American football players in countries that maybe haven't fully embraced the sport yet, and so there's a lot of mutual admiration for one another.
I mean, it's interesting you say that, especially looking at Russia. There's been a lot of investment in the Russian game, and they're starting to put together more competitive teams. They've been competing at the under-19 level as well, and
Jurnalicki back to pass, a little too high for his receiver. Of course, here in Great Britain, the game is well supported, and if you are within distance of Worcester, 2 o'clock is the kickoff today for the big game between GB and the Czech Republic. £5 to park, £5 entry, £2 if you're a student. Can't beat those prices. You can't beat this weather. Come on down for some of the best American football you're going to see internationally.
And what a day of American football. There are 2 games here. The NFL's on at 6 o'clock as well. So a really packed Sunday of American football.
Yeah, 2 o'clock kickoff with 12-minute quarters means you've got plenty of time to get home and see your 6 p.m. kickoffs for the NFL as well. Far sideline pass is complete. That's number 87, Alexander Koklov. He does have the first down.
And here we see it. The Russians are just taking these small chunks. 4th down, we've seen in the first half, they try to run it, they try to sneak. Now they're just taking those short plays, just moving the ball quickly down the field.
Well, as things stand right now, the Russians are going to be the one team who comes out of this weekend with 2 losses. So you want to give your team some positives to when they get back on that airplane to think about because these guys are still in season too. I mean, their playoffs are going on. Their championships are still coming up here in the next few weeks in Russia. It's an opportunity for your team to feel good, at least about some aspects of their weekend.
Absolutely. And the thing you've got to remember is it's a long journey over for a lot of them. Being in a different country, it's very hard to get acclimatized quickly, being able to play the games competitively. So to come out of this last game with something positive, a couple of scores, and maybe keep this game close would be massive for them going back home.
2nd down and 10.
We may have a review here on the catch to see whether it touched the floor or not.
We're on the far sideline from that, so our view perhaps not the best. I thought it hit the ground, but we'll see if the video replay agrees with the officials who also thought it hit the ground.
It's the Russian coach who requested that review, and I mean, from us, we're on the other side of the field and we're high up, but it did look like the ball bounced as it went into his hands.
Play did happen right in front of the Russian bench.
And I suppose if you've got an ex-NFL player on the sideline, he's very used to having that review facility on offer.
And he was a wide receiver, and wide receivers tend to think that every pass has been caught. So.
Yep, definitely.
We're hearing from the voices in our head that the call will stand based on the replay. And the call does stand. Russia will lose a timeout.
And that's the interesting thing. We've talked about game management all the way through. The Russians, they're 17 points down. They're going to need their timeouts. Is it worth challenging something that was probably going to net them maybe 6 or 7 yards on first down?
Yeah, it would have been a short gain at
Absolutely.
best.
And if they can score here and get competitive, you know that they're going to be wanting that timeout back later on in the game.
And had it been complete, the clock would have started running. So, all in all, it's kind of a push for the Russian offense. 2nd and 10, clock is now stopped. They get an opportunity to think things over, slow things down, figure out what it is they want to do. They're on the Dutch side of the field. Cherlewski back to pass, overthrows everybody.
There seemed to be a massive breakdown in communication here. They didn't know what formation they were in. The play was late coming out, and it looked like the receiver and the QB weren't on the same page. QB expected the guy to go deep. He ends up breaking his pattern off, and the ball goes incomplete.
When you've just had all kinds of a timeout there to discuss what you're going to do, there really is no excuse for guys not knowing exactly where they're supposed to be on the field.
And they're back out here with 4 wide receivers and a tight end, so they have their 5 eligible receivers.
Going deep, looking for his man near the goal line, throws it out of bounds. A lot of contact along that sideline, but that ball was a good 3 or 4 yards out of bounds.
That's a great job there by the Dutch DB, Dennis de Wit, because what he did there, he was able to force the Russian receiver to the sideline. He could use that sideline almost as an extra player, force him out of bounds using his body position, and then the receiver had no chance to make a play on that ball.
That'll bring up 4th and 10 for the Russians.
You probably would have liked to see the QB maybe check that down underneath and give himself a manageable 4th down, because now 4th and 10, they need 10 yards to get that first down.
We don't have a play clock visible, but surely this clock is ticking down as the Russian the quarterback was on the sideline for a long time.
And the thing is that I think what's happening now is because they're chasing the game, because they have to pass the ball, they're going into 5 wide receiver sets a lot. And the chances are they probably haven't practiced that much. They probably don't have the same comfort in the scheme playing 5 wideouts. And the last 2 plays have taken a long time to come. There's been a lot of communication. And then the Russians have burned a 2nd timeout because they couldn't get the play call down.
That was a delay of game penalty.
Oh, was it a delay
they
of
did
game?
Not call a timeout. They did call him for delay of game. And that's part of the problem when you've got the quarterback going to the sideline and getting the play, and then obviously they're consulting the wristband that he's got. All of his teammates having to consult the wristband. Even if you're not huddling up, a lot of time is ticking away. Overthrows his man on 4th and 15. It'll be a turnover on downs.
And here's the thing, I mean, he was throwing the ball to the running back there in the flat. Even if he had caught that ball, that would have been maybe a 1 or 2 yard pickup on for the Russians.
Well, Tony Simmons clearly unhappy with his bunch over there, but you know, the delay of game, that kind of thing, that's on the coaching staff. They're getting the play called late when you had a timeout for the review and then they came back out and people didn't seem to know what they're doing. That also has to be part of the coaching staff that takes responsibility for that.
Absolutely. You talk about body language on the sideline. Your players look at you as a head coach to inspire and to lead, and sometimes when you have that body language and you're down in the game, then that's gonna hurt the players as well.
So 1st and 10 for the Dutch. They have the ball at the 49-yard line.
They took a lot of time trying to get onto the field there. So,
and delay of game now on the Netherlands, and no excuse for that. They just stood huddled up on the sideline too long. There's no reason for that.
Dutch sideline are talking about whether the play was under review or something, but clearly they didn't know that the play clock had come in, and they got caught out there for sure.
I'm not sure what would have been reviewable in that last play. The play was overthrown by good 2 yards.
Oh, wow.
Back and forth razzle-dazzle there by the Dutch offense to no avail. We had one QB throwing to another QB, but In the end, it was just a very fancy incomplete pass, 2nd and 15. Now Sven Jansen will come off the field, so the one QB remains. That's Van Dwin. .756 on the game clock, 17-0 in favor of the Dutch. They give in the middle, bounces it to the left, but the Russians do a nice job converging on the ball carrier.
And the Dutch now are in what we call 4-minute offense, where they just want to try and run off as much clock as they can, get first downs, and eat away into the clock. We've got 7.5 minutes to go, and they really want to try and take away as much time as they can.
Dutch offensive lineman down on the play. That's Samuel Verwee. Russians taking the opportunity to catch a knee and catch a breather. And the injured player is going to walk off under his own power.
So it's 3rd and long here. It's going to be interesting to see what the Dutch do. If they pass the ball and it goes incomplete, then it's be great for the Russians because the clock will stop. Again, if they pass, there's a chance for a turnover potentially. Or are they just going to run it and to see this small amount of clock run down, get into 4th?
3rd and 13. Just Hoslag, your running back. And that ball underthrown, looking for Jasper Nyland. So on 4th down and 13, the punt team comes on for the Dutch. They didn't do a great job of running a whole lot of clock off the field there.
So the Dutch will punt, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the Russians, if they can take this punt, maybe get some yardage, and then have a good field position to try and make something happen on offense.
Jasper Van Doren gets a good kick.
Great kick.
Russians take it and then step out of bounds inside the 15-yard line. We do have a flag back up at the 40-yard line. So we'll see what the penalty is. No penalty, so the teams will change possession inside the 15-yard line. That's where the Russians will take over. Today's commentary made possible by epsports.co.uk. EP, they have a great range of kit and merchandise, and as a company built by ballers, they have great advice too. Make sure you check out them, epsports.co.uk. Also, this stream is brought to you by doublecoverage.com and our friends at N-Run Productions. And thank you to everybody who has tuned in this morning. Beautiful Sunday morning here in Worcester. Now transitioning into a beautiful Sunday afternoon.
Oh, he's got him. He's got him.
He's got a man. There is a flag, so we might have an offsides. Flag right at the line of scrimmage.
That would have been a great opportunity there for the Russians. They had the receiver had the DB beaten. He had it in his hands. He just couldn't hold on to it as he came down.
It was Pavel Voronenko. And illegal formation by the Russian offense, so that pass play would have been wiped away anyway.
Again, we talk about how many mistakes have happened in 5 wide receivers. Something as simple as one receiver not being able to check himself onto the line. Again, these mental errors are just creeping into the Russian performance as they're trying to chase the game.
2nd down and 10 now for the Russians. And again, a lot of time being taken as they, what the referees are determining. Now they will take the penalty. So initially they had declined it. Now they'll take the penalty. Miscommunication there between the sideline and the head referee.
And I mean, if you're the Russian defense, if you're the Dutch defensive coordinator here, you've got to be excited. I mean, they're in a clear passing situation. They're at their own end zone. This is where you could go man coverage and really put some pressure on with a blitz.
1st and 15. Empty backfield for the Russians.
There you go. They bring a blitzer.
Again, looking for number 13. He's got him.
Oh,
Can he
got
keep
him.
his feet? He's at the 50, giving chase, and somebody comes up lame, and he's going to go the distance for the touchdown.
Wow.
And just like that, the Russians are on the board. 6:47 to go. We also might have a little taunt that comes in here at the end of the game, or at the end of the play.
And that's number 10, the quarterback, who's near the player who's injured. That's where the flag was thrown. So I don't know whether he said something or maybe gestured to the player while he was on the floor.
It's like the defensive player in pursuit pulled a muscle and came up lame. And as you said, as the quarterback was running past him, he must have said something. Whatever it was, it drew a flag.
Now, if it's NCAA rules and that happens, does that negate the touchdown and bring the ball back?
Well, no, that was after the touchdown had been
after
scored.
the play? Right, okay then.
So that would be a dead ball foul. And it's good to see the Dutch player walking off under his own power. It looks like he might have just pulled a muscle there. It is a hot, sunny day there on the field. These guys are playing their second game in 3 days, and so
this is the thing. And not only do you have the coaching staff for each team, but you have the support staff and the medical staff, and they need to do such a job being able to get these guys ready for 2 games in 3 days, because all of them would have been coming off on Friday, really sore, banged up, injured, and then they got to get ready to play again on the Sunday.
So they will assess the penalty on the kickoff. The Russians will go for 2, it looks like. Not quite sure I understand the rationale behind this.
They still need 3 scores. Whether they go for 2, they still need 3.
Yeah, going for 2 doesn't change that margin for them. They still need 2 more scores. They'll still need a touchdown and a field goal.
Well, this is interesting because we saw them in pregame nailing some field goals, and they had a lot of range on their field goal kicker, so maybe there's an injury that's happened that means that they have to go for 2.
They kicked a 49-yard field goal against GB on Friday night, and they do have a kicker only on their roster. He's Nikolai Golovac.
I mean, we've been talking about game management all game now, and at 17-6, if they score again, that's going to take it to 17-12. If they then go for 2 and they are able to convert it, they're going to need a field goal to tie as opposed to a field goal to win it. So it's putting a lot of pressure on the team at the end of the game when they haven't been able to be as cohesive a unit as you would have hoped. Now they've got to kick off from a lot further back as well. So it's all kind of adding up for the Russians in terms of making it hard for them to chase the game.
Well, there is Nikolai Golovac coming on to kick off.
I mean, it'd be a bold move if they did an onside kick. I don't think they'd even consider it being so close to their own end zone. But
he's teed it up at his 19. That's not sure why they've conceded the extra yard, not teeing it up at the 20.
They've only got 10 on the field as well.
Shouldn't be a 16-yard penalty. That's a 15-yard penalty, and they're
one short on kickoff.
Short-handed on the kickoff team. So the Russians, all kinds of.
And they've had to take another timeout.
Timeout.
This is carnage on the Russian sideline at the minute.
Well, again, I one of the worst decisions I saw them make on Friday was that decision to 20 seconds left in the half. They had the ball at their own 5-yard line. They had 95 yards to go with 20 seconds left. Their quarterback had been taking pressure the entire first half. They decided to go empty backfield and try to throw the ball. They threw an interception, gave GB a gift 3 points before halftime, stole any momentum they might have had for the defensive stand that they just had. And the coaches, again, here seem to kind of be out of sorts. They're just some questionable decisions.
Yeah.
And certainly, I'm not going to question Tony Simmons' credentials. The guy played 5 years in the NFL, was a great wide receiver at Wisconsin, has lots of experience coaching on the international stage. It's a good kickoff considering they were back at the 20-yard line. Dutch running out of bounds, and then a late hit comes on, so the Russians continuing to be their own worst enemy here.
Absolutely, and there you could see the Dutch player had no running lanes. He'd been held up by a really good effort on the coverage team. He's run out of bounds, and the Russian player has still come in and just given him that shot. So that's 15 yards that the Russians can't afford to give up, as they've got 6 3/4 minutes left, and they're trying to get that ball back.
Just completely unnecessary. The Dutch player had given up. He was heading to the sideline. He was not going to try to move the ball upfield, and yet the Russians give them a bonus 15 yards, and so instead of starting at the 29, they're going to start at the 44.
I mean, we talked about last time when the Dutch were on offense. Now they've got to think about really eking that clock out. They need 2 or 3 first downs at least to be able to keep running that clock, to be able to keep the Russian offense off the field, because they've just shown that they can score quickly when they push the ball vertically.
We are at 6:44. There still is plenty of time, although the Russians now are down a couple of timeouts. Fumble snap, and just like that, see, the Russians could be in this game.
It was a low snap as well. He had to adjust to it and just couldn't grab onto it.
Do as much as you can to keep your team in the game, because mistakes could still happen on the other side. The Russians could find themselves with possession in Dutch territory here. That's why you can't give away 15 yards. They gave away 15 yards on the taunting penalty after the touchdown, and then another 15 yards right there. Van Doren makes the catch at the 45-yard line, so they're back.
I mean, when we're thinking about the games that have happened over the last couple of days, does this feel eerily familiar? I mean, in the fourth quarter, the Dutch were up by a couple of scores. There was a turnover that led to a touchdown. They just need to keep their heads. They just need to make sure that they get first downs and eat this clock out. This is a crucial down for the Dutch offense.
Yeah, 3rd down and 8 now. They really need a first down so they can maintain possession. They don't want to give the ball back to the Russians, who have grabbed the momentum. Overthrows his man. He had his open on the far side. And on 4th and 8, the Dutch will have to punt.
I mean, if you're the Russians now, you've got to be thinking about scoring quickly within the next minute or 2 of game time. They have a timeout left. They've got the 2-minute warning that will stop the clock as well. So they will have potentially 2 possessions left in the game. They need 2 scores. So the game is not over by any stretch.
We haven't seen the Russians really go for a punt block yet. And they're going to set up a return here, although
close.
Number 23 gets some pressure on the kick. Fair catch called inside the 20-yard line.
And now it's going to be interesting for the Dutch, because they just got burned on that long touchdown. They know that the Russian receivers have speed. They know that they're going to need to go to this vertical game. So we might see a different coverage, a different defensive mindset in terms of playing a little bit more of a prevent kind of style and keeping the Russians from scoring.
5:22 on the game clock. The Russians are at their 17-yard line. Pavel Voronenko, the man who just made the fair catch, the man who had the long touchdown for the Russians to keep them in this game, give them some life. He's at the top of the screen. Pass is complete. That's number 87, Alexander Kuklov. That is a first down for the Russians. And as you said, this eerily similar to Friday's game, and there's no doubt about it. Every defensive player on that Netherlands sideline is thinking about that.
They'd hate to come away with 2 losses in games that they were leading at the start of the fourth quarter.
Pocket holds.
That's a great job by the receiver of catching it. He knew he was getting hit as he crossed the middle there. He knew he was going to get contact, able to get the catch, move the down marker.
So many wide receivers get alligator arms in a situation like that where they are already preparing for the hit. He picks up 5 yards, moving the chains, or not yet on that play, but they're just moving the ball down the field.
Just keep moving the ball.
2nd and 5 ball at the 42 now. 4:33 to go. Chernowitzki goes deep. He throws it up. 3 Dutch defenders. A flag comes in. We'll see which direction this goes. There was a lot of contact.
The 87, the Russian receiver, he did have his hands in the back of the DB as he came over. So this might be offensive pass interference.
Well, the way the Russians are walking back to the line of scrimmage, they certainly think it is. And it is indeed offensive interference on Kokloff.
So as he was running, he had his hands on the back of the DB, and that's really obvious for the side judge who's right next to him to see as he's going up for the ball.
He did a good job of preventing the interception, but a 15-yard penalty will set up now 2nd down and 20.
So now they've got to think about, they need to chunk this back so that they get into a manageable 3rd or 4th down situation.
Again, looking for 87. Again, just a little too tall for him.
Or maybe go for all of it at once. This is the thing, because now are they in a position now where they're just going to just take shots, or are they going to think about, right, I've still got a 1st down to make. If I do that, I get to the 50-yard line, I can then start thinking about what I'm doing. The clock is a massive factor for them as well. We're down to 4 and a bit minutes. They need to start thinking cleverly about what they're doing moving the ball.
The Dutch defense does seem to be playing a little bit soft as well. No pressure on the quarterback. See Kevin Bourne, who was such a presence in the backfield in the first half, is dropping back in coverage, and he's back in coverage again. Only a 3-man rush, although that's
get to him.
Enough this time. Down goes the quarterback.
They've been having massive problems being able to block the 2 interior linemen. Dennis Nimier, I do apologize if I got that name wrong. They were having massive problems with him the play before as well, and he was able to hit the quarterback there.
Well, massive, the operative word when you're talking about him. 6'7", 320 pounds.
And now the Russians look like they're
going to go ahead and punt on 4th and 20. 3:39 on the clock, and the clock is running. If they could have made it into a 4th and manageable play, we might have seen them go for it. Snap is high, kicker gets it down. Low kick, takes a Russian bounce, and will bounce dead just inside the 33-yard line. 3:19 to go. The Dutch don't need to do a whole lot. A 1st down or 2 ought to do it. We want to thank all of you for joining us. And a reminder, today's commentary made possible by epsports.co.uk. EP have a great range of kit and merchandise, and as a company built by ballers, they have great advice too. Make sure you check them out at epsports.co.uk. The stream also brought to you by doublecoverage.com and Enrun Productions.
And during the break, we're going to go have a chat with Joe Black from EP Sports, who is the offensive coordinator at the Merseyside Nighthawks, and also Danny from Enrun Productions, so you can get to know them and their businesses a little better.
The handoff in the middle of the field. I suspect we're going to see a series of running plays out of the Dutch. If they do have to give the ball back to the Russians, they'd like to do it with under 2 minutes to go.
Absolutely.
That was number 18, Roddy Vink, the ball carrier, his first carry of the day. .250 to go. They work that clock down. This can be the last play and last snap before the 2-minute warning. It's Vink again, wrapped up at the line of scrimmage. We do now have the Russians calling a timeout. That is their final timeout.
So the Russians really going to hope that they can get the stop here, make a quick score when they get the ball back, and then they'd be probably looking for the chance of an onside kick again. But as the time runs down, all of this gets a lot more unlikely as we go forward.
Well, out of timeouts, only the 2-minute warning remains to stop the clock. The teams will huddle and have a chat here at this timeout. Obviously, the word for the Dutch offense, hang on to the football.
Absolutely. Last thing they want here is for the running back to fumble the ball or for there to be a bad snap and exchange.
No mistakes, no penalties, and 2 hands on the ball at all times. They can feel good about the way they played today. I know they were awfully down on Friday, the way they lost that game in the final minutes against the Czech Republic, but the Dutch have looked to be in command for most of the day. Certainly that stretch at the end of the second quarter, the key where they scored 2 touchdowns in 15 seconds. And now the Dutch will call a timeout. Did not like what he saw.
So it's interesting to think about what they were trying to do there. Were they looking for a different look from the defense, maybe trying to catch them offside and get that first down? But the QB didn't really do that much with his cadence. So there wasn't much chance for a jump there to be happening.
Yeah, the fact that they called a timeout makes me think that perhaps it wasn't just a running play trying to work the clock, that maybe they are, in fact, trying to pick up that first down and not give the ball back to the Russians again today. Let the game finish with the ball in their offense's hand. So here we go again after back-to-back timeouts. And we're going to get a false start.
That's the thing. This is probably the time of the game where you don't need the fanciness, the motion. You just need to run the ball up the middle, get a first down.
So 5 yards, and instead of a second down and 5 or a third down and 5, where a running play has a realistic chance to pick up the first down, now you're looking at third down and 10. And if a first down is what you want, then you might have to go to the air. But of course, that then stops the clock if it's incomplete. Now go trips out to the quarterback's left side. He is a left-hander. And that's the direction he's going to roll. He's got a man settled in.
Pass.
First down catch. That's number 7, Ravelino Granust. Steps out of bounds.
The Dutch have really favoured. They've really favoured this rollout trips package where we're going to get different levels. They're going to get one slot guy run the flat, and the next slot guy is going to run that deep out, and they're going to try and find the hole behind that Russian defense. That's a really good job picking up the first down, and this is just going to let the clock run.
Big ball at the 48-yard line.
Big shout out to Greg Freeman, the ex-Birmingham Lions special teams coordinator who's checking in from his worldwide tour.
And an interesting decision here to stop the clock, pick up the first down, and you now could just run the ball and run out the clock. You do have the 2-minute warning, but other than that, the Russians are unable to stop the clock. It's kind of a bonus timeout right there.
Passing the ball is probably a bit unnecessary in that situation.
Well, as old Woody Hayes used to say, the old longtime coach of Ohio State, the 3 things can happen when you pass, and 2 of them are bad.
Absolutely.
Russians jumping off sides. Ball carrier is Vink. Picks up a yard.
Yeah, they'll get 5 yards on the offside. There's defense jump there. And when the ball was snapped, the Russian defensive line were in the neutral zone, so that should be 5 yards to the offense.
Certainly looked like there was a connection made between the defensive lineman and the offensive lineman.
I think the thing we need to talk about is, like, at the start of the game, we talked about how strong the Russian defensive line has been, especially against GB, in taking away that inside run. The Dutch have done a really good job today of being able to get lanes in the running game through the different things they've done with the veer and different zones and different jet game. So they've done a really good job.
Well, and they've kept the quarterbacks upright for the day. Yeah, the offensive line has done a nice job. Controlled that line of scrimmage. So 2-minute warning is now come and gone. 2nd and 5. Dutch are going to pass. He's got the first down.
And that will pretty much do it. They can
down to the 37 now.
It's interesting what they're going to do now. I mean, are they going to try and get a final score to finish the game, and with some positivity? It looks like they're moving the chains, trying to get in and out of the huddle quickly. It doesn't look like they're going to be taking a knee here to finish the game.
Yeah, so far, no victory formation for the Dutch. Trips now to the right side. Handoff in the middle is to Vink. Vink's got a hole, delivering some blows, and he's got another first down.
We were just talking about that Dutch offensive line, and there we saw it. The holes opened up, and the running back had a massive hole to work through, okay, and pick up the offensive line. Pick up the first down, sorry.
First down and 10 at the 27-yard line. Of course, the clock does stop as those chains move. Once they are set, the clock does start again. We are at 1:16 and counting. Again, it's Vink. Stretches it outside, but nothing doing.
I suppose the thing you've got to remember there is these guys don't get a lot of chances to play together as the national team, so they don't really want to give up a possession to have another scoring chance. This is probably why they're not kneeling out, finishing the game. This is probably why they're going for the end zone.
That was Yaroslav Chernov driving the ball carrier out of bounds. Plays for the Krasnodar Bisons, one of the few non-Moscow players on the roster. So if you're the Russian coach and you're on that airplane flying home, you know, what do you tell your guys as they look ahead to perhaps greener pastures and better days on the international football scene?
I think the thing for me is you need to understand that there is a lot of good talent on this Russian team on both sides of the ball, which we've seen in both games. And I think the thing that it comes down to, and this happens so much in Britain as well, it's the infrastructure. The coaching infrastructure just needs to be a little bit tighter in terms of how they're putting together their product on the field. Something that I've talked about previously is the thing that you see on the game day is a direct result of what is done in practice, what's done in the film room, and that kind of stuff. So they need to be a little bit better prepared going into future games, knowing that their packages are ready, that their situations are ready, and then they're going to be able to compete at a better level, because they've been held to single digits by 2 teams now.
So it's 4th down now. The clock at 34 seconds. Quarterback has gone over to the referee. I'm sure he's telling him that they want to call a timeout before the clock expires. Either a long field goal attempt, or they want to get one last play and one last shot at the end zone.
It'd be a 49-yard attempt if they went for the field goal. And they went for a long one earlier on in the game and came up about 10 yards short on it. So probably not the situation they want to be in there.
And so there is the timeout with 1 second left. The clock ticked down to 0, but the whistle did blow at 1. So that is exactly what the quarterback told the referee. So we'll see what the Dutch have in store. 1 play left in the game, ball at the 32-yard line.
So this will probably be a situation where they go either 4, maybe 5 wide receivers to the end zone. A little bit of a Hail Mary situation, try and see if they can finish the game with a touchdown.
Now, does this feel like running up the score if you're the Russians? Do you take this personally, or do you understand that this is just an opportunity for some live practice against another team?
I think it might stick in the core a little bit, the fact that the game's over and there's not much they can do as the coach just gets a Gatorade bath down here on the sideline. He must be feeling quite refreshed after that.
Well, it is sunny, so he's now by far and away the coolest on the sideline for the Dutch, and wearing all black too. So I'm sure he welcomed that.
This is the thing, you put so much time and effort into it. When you get the win, you want to be rewarded, and you want to feel that success as well. So that's a great job by the Dutch team. And now we do see the victory formation to finish out the game.
So a final kneel. And the final score in our consolation game today, the Netherlands 17, or the Russians 6. Wasn't the game the Dutch wanted to play in. They wanted to be in that 2 o'clock game, but they picked themselves up after the loss on Friday, came out. We saw them in the pregame. They looked to be fired up. They looked to be ready. They certainly didn't appear to be treating this as a game they didn't want to be in. They played things well. They had that great sequence there at the end of the first half where they went on top 14-0 and really were in control from that point on.
That's the thing, the turnovers, the mistakes that the Russians made, that really kind of put the game where it was. And the Russians were chasing for the second half. They played 5 wide receivers for most of that second half, and they just didn't seem to be able to click. They made more mental mistakes, and the touchdown that came was probably a little bit too late for them to stay competitive.
And certainly the Russians are disappointed, but you know, that's a sideline full of guys who love playing American football. They got to come and play American football for an entire weekend against some good talent. It's got to be, even though they've lost, they've got to feel great about just an opportunity to get better.
Absolutely.
To play the game they love, to get better. And now, of course, we look ahead to that 2 o'clock game. The championship, that winner of that game moves on to face Sweden. It's GB, who are 30-3, impressive victors on Friday night. Of course, the Czech Republic showed a lot of fortitude. They were down, could have folded their tent, but they came back in the second half against the Dutch, won that game 2013. Going to be an excellent game. And, of course, our sponsors bringing that game to you today, 2 o'clock, epsports.co.uk. EP have a great range of kit and merchandise, and as a company built by ballers, they have great advice, too. This stream and, of course, the 2 o'clock stream brought to you by doublecoverage.com and N-Run Productions. And as we look ahead to this afternoon's game, you've got two teams who've played against each other 3 years ago. Of course, a lot of personnel has changed in those 3 years. They played in Milan. The British were victorious 24-7, but still a lot of familiar faces between those two clubs as well.
Absolutely. And both teams, like we said about these two here, as soon as they got back to their hotels on Friday, they would have been into the tape. They would have been looking at the game they played previously, maybe trying to get some previous game film from other international games. And you know that they're both going to be ready. The GB staff have done a hell of a job in preparing for this weekend, and you'll know that they'll have a good game plan put together with Tony Smith on offense and Wayne Hill on defense. So it's going to be exciting to see how they do in the afternoon fixture.
Well, and we talked about the importance of quarterback play, and the Czech team have an experienced quarterback. He's a 30-year-old. He was on that team 3 years ago. He's played at this level for a long time. From Prague, one of their best quarterbacks. And then of course you've got Jerome Allen, who had a terrific game on Friday night, and Josh Adamson, who provides a bit of a different feel with his legs. So we're going to see some excellent quarterback play this afternoon.
Absolutely. And both offenses are set up for the quarterback. GB run an air raid style system where they want to basically pass to run the ball. The Czechs, they had a lot of success in that first game throwing the ball. The QB was a really big weapon in the running game too. So there's going to the way that position plays this afternoon is going to define who comes out and goes to play Sweden in the next step. He
did rush for 2 touchdowns there in that comeback win for the Czechs, and so we certainly hope you join us if you are able to make it down to the stadium by 2 o'clock. Can't beat £5 to park, £5 to get in, £2 if you're a student. And obviously, if you can't make it, you can find it right here, courtesy of doublecoverage.com and nrunproductions.com. Right now, the teams getting their medals for 3rd and 4th place. So the Russian team getting their fourth place medals. They won't talk about a lot of the actual game action from this weekend, but they will be talking about that long touchdown pass.
Absolutely. They'll have that to remember for sure.
And no doubt these guys will cherish this medal, even though it's certainly not the medal they wanted. Still, again, these guys are in season too. I mean, a lot of these guys are going back to play in the semifinals for the Russian League Championship. Good opportunity for them to come play some really good talent as they get ready for the end of their season.
And it gives them an idea of what they need to do now. The coaching staff, the governing body of the sport in Russia, they can go back and see, right, this is what we did, this is what we're up against. What are we going to do now to put some things in place and become more competitive next time around?
Well, as you mentioned, the Russians have done a lot of investment in the sport recently in their own country, and while it's a relatively new sport, it has taken off. Got a lot of clubs, a lot of good clubs. We saw a lot of good players here today. They're certainly what you expect to think of a Russian team. They are big, they're strong, they're tough, and they're certainly only going to get better the more they play.
Absolutely.
And if they've got somebody like Tony Simmons who's teaching them the game, who certainly knows an awful lot about football and has spent his career post as a player basically going around the world and teaching American football to young players all over the place. He was a coach for the very first ever American football game in the country of India, head coach of a team in Sao Paulo, Brazil, has coached a couple of different countries here in Europe, and now the Russian head coach.
And that's the thing, I think the key for him is being able to stay around with the program and being able to build it up with the progress that they've made this weekend and then taking that forward from there. It's a very competitive league in Russia, a lot of great teams, a lot of teams are represented in their roster as well.
Now the Netherlands will pick up their third place medals. They've got a much more advanced program in the Netherlands than in Russia, but obviously a smaller country, not as deep a population to pick from versus say like the Germans, who obviously there's some excellent football played in Germany, excellent football played here in Great Britain, of course, in Italy.
That's the thing, and there's a lot of good coaches over in the Netherlands now who are helping to raise the profile of the game. Very experienced coaching staff here, and like I said earlier, they had a lot of training camps, had a lot of friendlies leading up to this tournament in order to prepare themselves. So a very well-run national team, very well-run program and organization. And again, same with the Russians, they're going to take away a lot of lessons from this in looking forward for the next time the tournament cycle comes around.
Well, obviously there are good athletes everywhere, and really the key is to get good coaches who can both teach the game and make those athletes fall in love with the game. And when that happens, your program can really blossom. Dutch, I know, will be happy to get on that plane and come away with a victory. Certainly going home with 2 losses would have been very, very disappointing for the Dutch. They had high expectations coming into this weekend. Big win against their rivals in Belgium to get to this stage.
I'm sure they'll be able to take in the game this afternoon and then probably celebrate in the evening as well as a group, because they should be proud of what they've done today.
Well, as Rich was mentioning on Friday, he did uni here, and he was quick to point out that there are an awful lot of pubs here in Worcester.
Yes.
So yeah, after they watch tonight's game, we're just Worcester, watch out.
Yeah, as long as nobody's pint shy, then everyone should have a good time.
Going to be a few football clubs unleashed on your town. So all smiles all around for the Dutch winners here in the early game, 17-6. Kevin Bourne, really the difference maker in that first half, who spent most of the game playing on the Russian side of the line of scrimmage.
And when they brought in Sven Janssen at the quarterback position, it just helped them just open up the offense. The Russians didn't really know whether they were getting QB runs, whether they're getting receivers, receiver passes. It just opened up a lot more of those options for the Dutch offense.
And the presentation of the team trophies. And Kevin Bourne, one of the gentlemen out there to accept the third place plate from the organizers. Photos and smiles.
Yeah.
Now they can settle in for an enjoyable afternoon of watching the rest of the football here. We thank you very much for joining us here for this early game. Don't forget 2 o'clock kickoff here at Sixways for the afternoon game between Great Britain and the Czech Republic. The winner will advance out of this group and play Sweden. And if you can't make it to the stadium, you will, of course, see the action right here, courtesy doublecoverage.com and End Run Productions and our friends at EP Sports. On behalf of Andrew Morgan, I'm Kyle Garlett, and we will be back here shortly for game number 2.